Is it
Well,
any
hello,
surprise
oddies.
No, it's not
Hey?
hello. No, it's not hello. Is it any
Not hello.
surprise that your audience trolls the shit out of me?
Okay.
We're going to have this out. These thumbnails.
Have you rolled out of the wrong side of bed? What's going on?
These thumbnails, these stitch-ups are unconducive to a good relationship between yourself and I.
You noticed.
I'm most unimpressed.
Okay, I'm going to bring up my. Listen, this was not me. This wasn't me. In my defense, this was Roy. Yeah. I'm throwing Roy. Roy, you're going to be editing this soon. I'm throwing you under the bus. This was all you. You've got me in a lot of trouble, Roy. You've got me in a lot of trouble, and I'm going to have to sweet talk my way out of this one. The thumbnail under discussion is no, that's not going to work. Hang on, I'm going to have to do it a different way. Let me get it up on screen so that people know what we're talking about. Yeah. Well, listen, I didn't know you were going to be so sensitive about it, did I? Yeah.
Your audience loves to tell everyone how much they don't like me. What the hell is that?
I have no hand. I have no hand in this.
I look like one of those clowns at the circus, like.
Well, hang on. This
something else completely inappropriate.
This is the segment where we were discussing how no women responded favorably when you reached out to them. You got lots of support. Well, I mean, the support that you got was from blokes and not from women. And this was his idea for the thumbnail. And, you know, I'm just going to say the video absolutely bombed. So clearly putting your face on a thumbnail is a really bad idea.
I told you it would. I told you that would bomb.
To be fair, you did. You did absolutely call it, yes.
Yeah. Do you know what's interesting is one of your lovely audience did tell me I need elocution lessons. And I was like, sure, I'm going to pay for it. Do you know what I find really interesting? And this is probably something we can talk about given the hell we're about to go into. There seems to be this desire for, I don't know the approximate age that this seems to be happening for, but I'm going to assume you have a somewhat older audience for late millennial, Gen Z kind of thing.
Right.
And I think that in looking towards independent media, which is yourself and I, they're kind of hoping that we will fill that spot of the old broadcaster. So not just like, they're turning to us to watch it. Understanding the podcast element where it's just an ad hoc conversation. It just flows. It's not necessarily done in a way that's presented. And, even now, if you're listening to Channel 7, Channel 9, when they have a female newsreader, she drops her voice down and they all sound the same. Have you noticed that?
Yeah. Like, there's a presenter voice. Yeah.
And I clearly don't have that. And I can go get it if you really want.
Well, can I say that you are clearly having quite a profound impact on a lot of people in ways that are expected because of your amazing work and the way that you explain things and break them down, and in some ways that are a little bit less expected, such as with Amanda Rose here, who is currently making her first sourdough starter.
Trad wives for the win. No, honestly, I literally just finished my last mouth of sourdough as I was talking to you. I was like, rah, rah, rah. Once you make,
it's actually true.
Once you start making your own bread, you can't go back. You just cannot.
Yeah. No, and I've had your sourdough. It's amazing. Amanda's on a roll tonight. She says, "What's everyone drinking?" I feel like the trigger words will be coming in thick and fast tonight. The trigger words are going to be coming in so thick and fast that I've actually cracked open a bottle. I went 7 months without drinking just to break any addictions because I drank way too much during COVID. And I started drinking again last week. And I went, you know what? I'm going old school slow chat tonight. Number one, because I think it's going to be a long episode. There is a lot to talk about and we missed last week. So there is a lot. But also because I've got a really awful feeling of deja vu. When I look at what Keir Stammer is doing, when I look at what Anthony Albanese wants to do, when I look at the Australian Human Rights Commission calling for a crackdown on misinformation about climate change under human rights reasonings, I look at all of this and I go, oh, here we go again. I don't like what I'm seeing. I do not like what I'm seeing.
It's actually genuinely quite terrifying. I think I mentioned this earlier on in the year. I was rereading 1984 just because I hadn't read it in recent years. And weirdly, this is all just straight out of all of the Hollywood movies that had prepared us for this exact case scenario. So take, for example, V for Vendetta. I watched that maybe 3 months ago. Great movie.
Right.
When did that come
Yeah.
out? 2006?
It was a while
Somewhere
ago.
there?
Yeah. It'd have to be something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, it's over 20 years old. It's somewhere there. When you go watch that again, V for Vendetta, I don't know if it's meant to be both loosely based on 1984 or whatnot, but essentially talking about England, who had been taken over by this totalitarian regime, and essentially they clamp down on everything. They watch you.
Yeah.
And they have one single broadcast channel where a man gets up and just talks to them and basically fires up the base with propaganda. And you're seeing that now. That's the reality of what we're living in. And what's even scarier is people can't see it.
Yeah. It's quite amazing watching people who instinctively side with the rebellion. Anytime, they watch Star Wars or they watch Firefly or they watch any sort of sci-fi, historical fantasy, whatever it may be, they watch that and they side with the rebellion. They instantly understand that the rebels are the ones who are right. And yet in the real world, they simply cannot see it. Now, Pamela's asking the heavy-hitting questions. Pamela, you didn't think I'd let you down, did you? Like, you didn't actually think I was going to mention a slow chat and not have brought out a cigar. This I will have, speaking of historical fiction, this is the Highclere Castle, named after the Highclere Castle is the location where Downton Abbey was filmed. What happened was when they were doing some works there, they broke open a wall and they found a cavity on the inside. And for whatever reason, who knows why it was there, they found a very old box of cigars sitting there. And of course, the cigars were cactus. They hadn't been humidified. They hadn't been, stored correctly. So they weren't smokable. But what they did was they analyzed the tobacco to try and figure out what was the blend, what was the mix of tobaccos, where was this tobacco probably grown. And they sort of reverse engineered it. And this is their best guess. And it's called the Highclere Castle, named after the castle. And this is meant to be an homage to cigars of, 100, 200 years ago. And it is very nice, by the way.
I'm glad it is. I really wanted to make it out to Highclere Castle just because it's such a stable of all of those Jane Austen movies and things like that.
Yeah.
But isn't it crazy how they used to live back then? You think of what we do now. I think I mentioned this last week, but we just moved out of our McMansion. And I never want to live in a house that big again. It is traumatizing.
Yeah, look, it's actually a problem. Like we are so surrounded by luxury today. We are the first generation in the history of civilization where obesity has been correlated with poverty. Obesity throughout history until literally 50 years ago, obesity was correlated with wealth. If someone was fat, they had money. We are so rich now that our poor people are fat. We are so rich now that our houses can be too big. We talk about downsizing. People, the kids are going, blah, blah, I want to move into a smaller house. This is like the ultimate first world problem. Now, it is a problem. I'm not disrespecting the fact that, that's a challenge. But can we just stop and appreciate how wealthy we've become as a civilization to have these sorts of problems?
Well, do you know what's interesting is I'm doing another video. You know how I've been doing these little Instagram 3-minute videos, and this seems to be my sweet spot. And I think you found this too when you started doing your YouTube, because most people are conditioned now, not all of you guys, but for the vast majority is very short form content. So like 2-3 seconds and then they're scrolling off, right? So the fact that I've been able to sort of see growth around my channel around the 3-minute mark, which doesn't sound like a long time, but for social media, that's basically a decade. And it's interesting because I've kind of figured out my secret sauce, and where I've been sort of hitting the mark recently is talking about consumption and consumerism and the poverty mindset. Now, I don't know if we've talked about this before, but I know this is, guys, get your drinks. This is something I have researched extensively for my master's. You knew I couldn't get that. I couldn't get away with it.
I'm gonna have to take small sips tonight, or else I'm gonna be in a lot of trouble. I've hardly drunk. I've only drunk a little bit in the last week since I started drinking again.
Looking at, Amazon, for example, and look, I am guilty of this. So, I'm talking about myself here. How convenient it is when you think, oh, I need that thing. Oh, quick, I'll just add it to my Amazon cart. And this is I'm not saying this is healthy, but I now have a point where I just put things in my Amazon cart, and when I feel like I'm ready to purchase, I'll be like, bang. And all of a sudden, all these like weird little things will rock up. And I'm like, oh yeah, that's right. I needed that weird thing that does this like tiny little thing. And you, especially when you're moving into a new house, you might look for different shelving options, whatnot. But
Yeah.
you go into Amazon, there are so many things that are around, $4 to $10 that can absorb all your available income. And
Yeah.
when people get frustrated not having any money, one of the best bits of advice I ever got was take care of the cents and the dollars take care of themselves, meaning it's your smaller purchases, which is where you waste your money. And you think about what we have now. We have Uber Eats, which is a big one. You have Amazon, you have Shein, you have Temu, and a whole host of other things. Even Bunnings. Bunnings is a great example. We just spent the weekend cleaning the old house and we went to Bunnings maybe 3 or 4 times. When I say it was packed, think
Yeah. They're
Boxing
doing
Day
good
sales.
business.
So like Saturday morning, it was so busy. I went to the Bunnings in Mentone, right? And it's a huge one. Like it's one of their big ones. And the sausage sizzles out the front because obviously that's the first thing you do. You get your sausage. And I had to wait 5 minutes for a sausage. That's weird, right? I know you're going first world problems, but think about it. I had to wait. Anyway, go in store. I'm dodging all these people with trolleys. And everyone takes their dogs to Bunnings now too. It's apparently like a real social thing.
Yeah.
And I'm walking around going, has no one else got anywhere to be? Why are we all at the hardware store? And they don't just come in for like, that weird washer that you need or that battery. They're coming in with trolleys.
Yeah.
And they're leaving with big trolley loads.
Have you ever seen who Weird Al Yankovic is?
Yeah.
So he's best when he's doing covers. His covers are amazing. I love them. He's tried to do a few original songs along the way, and between you and me, and I'm a big fan of his, I'm not having a go, but his original work kind of sucks in comparison to his parodies. But he did a song about a hardware store, about going to the hardware store, and it wasn't a great song. But I just thought, what other artist out there is trying? I mean, apart from maybe what's his name, who did the song about thrift shopping, thrift store shopping. Yeah, apart from maybe him, who's doing songs about going to the hardware store, for crying out loud? It was very, very funny. I want to jump back to this. Sorry.
Okay. No, I was gonna say it's a thing now. It's a cultural phenomenon. I think it's because obviously cost of living, overseas holidays probably aren't necessarily on everyone's list at the moment. So maybe home improvements, buying some plants, renovating a small room.
Well, see, that definitely happens. This is a really interesting area of substitution, because if you're already in the lower socioeconomic demographic and times get tough, you get to the point where you're eating dry biscuits or just cooking up pasta for dinner and waiting for the lights to get turned off. But for other people, times get tough for them, and they go from having the holiday in Aspen to having a holiday in Australia, or doing things like absolutely doing the home renovation to make their home feel nicer. And so there are industries that can actually benefit even during hard economic times. It's not that there are people in the country doing well. It's just that for them, this is their step backwards. This is the thing that they're going to spend money on now because I don't have the money to spend up there. This is the comment I wanted to get to. Ricky, the Lot 23 is amazing. The Perdomo are one of my favorite brands. They're probably my second favorite brand right after Oliva. And their 10-year anniversary in either the Connecticut, the Sun-Grown, or the Maduro, the 10th anniversary, just absolutely magnificent. The Lot 23 is interesting. I enjoy it from time to time, but it's not my favorite out of their range. But it is a very good stick.
So I was going to talk about what did you just say? I totally forgot because you started talking about cigars. I had a comment.
Well, we were talking about substitution. We were talking about the fact that when times get tough, it doesn't mean the same thing for everybody.
So that's a real economic indicator too, the lipstick theory. Are you familiar with this? Yeah, so I think it was the founder of either Estee Lauder or Lancome noticed that in times of economic decline, that lipstick sales go up. So that becomes the luxury purchase. It's no longer, a new outfit or a new pair of shoes. It's a lipstick because it's a rather insignificant expenditure. What's a lipstick?
But it makes you feel good. Yeah. And you do start to think a lot more about bang for your buck. You start to dismiss the things that you don't really need. And you really start to think, you've heard that theory around spending. If you're spending your own money on yourself, then you care a lot about how much it costs because it's your money, and you care a lot about whether it's any good because you're the one who's stuck with it. If you're spending your own money on somebody else, like a gift or something like that, you care a lot about how much it costs because it's your money, but you care a lot less about the quality of the gift. You're kind of like, oh yeah, that'll do, right? And then vice versa, if you're on a work trip, you don't care what something costs. You just care about what the result is because you're like, well, I'm the one having the drinks out, or I'm the one staying in the hotel. Who cares what it costs? I want the nice thing. But then you get politicians and bureaucrats because they're spending other people's money on other people. So they don't care about what it costs, and they don't care about whether it gets a decent result. And that's literally how we've decided to run our countries.
Do you know, so I'm just going to segue a little bit because I'm just reading the chat and a lot of people saying how tough times are at the moment. And I totally get it, guys. Like, I'm on the same path as you. Like, every time I go to the supermarket now, I have to look at, I went to Bunnings, right? Like I said, 3 times. And I look at the receipt. I'm like, what just cost me $200? I don't have much in my trolley.
Yeah.
And I had to do a double take. Things that used to cost maybe like $5 to $10 are now $25.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example. I had to go dig up all my plants, right? I'd spent all this time and effort in my old house doing up the garden, and I put in like all these hydrangeas and stuff. And I thought to myself, that was a considerable cost. I'm not going to leave them there because it's like thousands of dollars of plants. So I went to Bunnings, bought the pots, and I was like, I'll dig them up. And I thought, I'm going to be in the garden on my knees all day. I'm already sore from moving house. I'm going to buy one of those knee pad things, right? Just to save my knees. I swear, I must have misread, but I swear it said $10. And so I was like, oh yeah, $10, whatever. Went through the checkout and it was $30 or something. And it's nothing. It's a cushion. It's $30.
Yeah.
The pots, they're just plastic pots. There's nothing remarkable about them. Each one was $6, $7. And so before long, you start realizing, it's adding up. So you think about the average person when they're going to the groceries, when they're paying for their utilities, when they're doing those like little recreational trips to whether it's Bunnings or Kmart. How much that expenditure has increased and how little surplus cash is now available. So on top of that, as I was saying, I recently just did a video on Adrian Bortelli. Now, he's a polarizing figure, and I don't understand why. I see the hate and I read the hate. And what it seems like to me, and this is the correlation I wanted to make, is that Australians can sense economic hard times, right? Like they understand that, it can be really difficult. Yet when they see someone doing well, they resent it. And then they call him, a grifter. He's built a Ponzi scheme. Like some of the comments to Adrian on my content were horrendous, like incredibly nasty. And there's this weird like dichotomy in Australia where we want to see success. We don't want to be poor. We want to no longer be the Aussie battler. But yet when someone else does it, we don't want to let that crab out of the bucket. Like, no. You got too big for your boots, right? That's that whole
come back down here. So this is rooted in Malthusian thinking. So Malthus wrote a book, and he was essentially a preacher of this idea of scarcity. And scarcity is real. Scarcity is a thing. But what he preached essentially was that there was very much a fixed pie, and all we were ever going to do is redistribute who has how much of what pie. Out of his thinking came a book called The Population Bomb by Paul Ehrlich. It was published in the 60s, I think, the first time. And I think the original version was predicting massive famine if the world's population hit like 2 billion people or something like that, because there weren't enough resources to go around. And then all of a sudden we're at 8 billion, and actually we're feeding ourselves better than ever before. As a percentage of the population, we have the lowest levels of poverty in human history. More people have food, more people have clean water, more people have clothing, more people have shelter than ever before, even though we have more people. And so there's something else at work here. And of course, the reality, if you understand Austrian economics, if you understand how the world really works, you realize that value is being created and destroyed all of the time. And so it doesn't matter how many people you have. What matters is, are those people on average creating more than they consume, or are they consuming more than they create? And if everyone on average is creating more than we consume, then the world's getting richer, and we're going to leave a better heritage to our kids than what we got from our own parents. And so then we need to add another layer to that. People have this picture. So even people that have put that aside and they recognize that someone can be rich without them having taken it from somebody else. Someone being rich is not the reason someone else is poor. That would be true if there was a fixed amount of wealth in the world, but if there's not, you can invent wealth. You can create it out of nowhere. But people still get stuck when it comes to actual money, because there is, at any given moment in time, there is a finite amount of money in the world. And so it's being created and destroyed all the time as well. And obviously the amount of money is growing very rapidly because governments are creating it through debt on housing mostly. But the amount of money in the world at any given instant, the amount of money is fixed. And so it would be very easy to tell yourself, well, therefore a billionaire, Elon Musk going to be the world's first trillionaire. He's got all the money. People have this picture of Scrooge McDuck diving into a silo full of coins and so forth. The reality is the vast majority of wealth is not held in cash. It's held in assets. It might be in property. It might be in shares. It might be in precious metals. It might be in all sorts of other things. A wealthy person that's sitting there with $1 billion cash is an idiot, because the value in that cash is inflating away at least a few percent every single year. They're going to work really hard to try and put that money to work doing something. So there's this funny thing that happens. Let's say someone does really well and they go, right, I want to renovate my house. I'm going to do a big renovation, big new pool, beautiful new landscape, all the rest of it. And then some other person walks past and goes, well, they could have given that money away. Well, hang on. They did give that money away. They gave it away to the builder and the architect and the pool guy and the landscaper and the guy that supplies crushed rock, etc. They gave all that money away. They're not holding on to the cash, but what they did was they exchanged it for an asset of equal value. So they haven't actually used any of the world's money. They haven't destroyed any wealth by doing that. All they did was exchange the cash wealth that they had with a real estate wealth. And now that cash is in the hands of other people who can then go on and do other things with it. So we've got to break these shackles. And especially as we head into hard times, we've got to break these shackles and start to see money differently. Money is a language. It's a way of communicating with each other and expressing to each other our thanks and our appreciation, our gratitude. Oh, you've offered me something that I like, that I want. I'm going to give you some of my money in return for that thing. And for as long as exchange is voluntary, then that is a really, really good thing. That is actually the best thing that we could possibly do. Hard times don't affect everyone the same at the same time. And it is not selfish for you to think about your circumstances and to make decisions that are going to minimize the hardness of the times ahead for you. And in fact, I would suggest, especially if you have kids, you have a moral obligation to be thinking about, what can I do with integrity, not with deception, but with integrity? What can I do to improve my situation, to minimize the impact of the hard times ahead on my family?
Yeah. I want to touch on this response here, and I'm going to disappoint a couple of people in the chat who seem to agree with Steve and say, this is flat out the Aussie attitude I just want to eradicate. Like this blanket statement of people get rich by underpaying their workers and overcharging their customers. So that's everyone that's ever accumulated wealth has done so through some kind of nefarious means. Like there's no such thing as talent. There's no such thing as hard work. There's no such thing as anyone that's actually put in a little bit more effort than maybe you, Steve. I'm sorry. Like, I don't care what your attitude is to this. This is a really crappy mindset. Not for me. It doesn't impact me. It's for you. If you think that everyone out there got where they are and their wealth because they underpaid their staff and they overcharged customers, I feel really sorry for you, Steve, and anyone that agrees with him. If that's the way that you view the world, go.
Yeah. Can I make a comment on this? So there's a really good illustration that gets used. I'm not the one that invented this. I heard it somewhere that gets used about the value of a worker. So workers are very quick to sit there and say, well, I'm worth more than what I get paid. And I can remember when my brother was doing computer programming, he was only a teenager, and he brought on another computer programmer, and she had a massive chip on her shoulder against her former boss, because this is ages ago. Her former boss would charge her out at $80 an hour, and she only got paid $25 an hour. And she had a real problem with that. Yeah. And I said to her, hey, how about you just go out on your own then, go and freelance, and you can charge $80 an hour. And her reply was, oh, but no one's going to pay me $80 an hour. I said, well, what do you mean? You said you're worth that. She said, oh, no, that's, they want to do business with a business where there's a helpline that gets answered 24 hours a day. And if there's a problem, then it gets fixed really quickly. I just want to do my 40 hours and go home. I said, okay, so they're not, the value that they're paying $80 an hour for isn't actually you. It's the fact that your boss makes sure that there is a version of you available at any given moment in time, no matter when they call. Now, the example that economists give is someone who's doing valet parking. Right? So you show up, you get a job doing valet parking. The venue has created the attraction. The reason why people actually come to that venue is because they're a casino or they're a hotel or they're a events venue. There's a reason why people want to come there. They provide you with the uniform that gives people confidence that you've been trained, that you're insured if you crash their car, all of those things. You're getting paid, let's say, $40 an hour. The thing is, every single person that valet parks their car is paying $50, and you park 10 cars an hour. You're sitting there going, I'm making this company $500 an hour. I'm only getting paid $40 an hour. I'm getting ripped off. Okay, we can test this theory. Go and put on your best suit, your best clothing, and go door knocking and ask how many people are willing to pay you $50 to park their car. The answer is, get off my lawn, you freak. That's the answer that you'll get. You go to the supermarket and try and valet park for people at the supermarket. No, F off. Who are you, you weirdo? That's the response you're going to get. So actually, the $500 an hour isn't actually being made by you as the person who's doing the parking of the car. The $500 an hour is being made by the establishment that has created an ecosystem in which people want to have their car valet parked, right? And you, as the cog in that machine, you are only worth your replacement cost. You're only worth what it costs to replace you as a cog in that machine. Now, this is not demeaning. People go, "Oh, you're demeaning my value as a human being." No. This is reality. This is literally how it works. And it's a good thing. When you actually grasp it and comprehend this reality, you realize this is incredibly empowering and incredibly freeing. But you've just got to accept that you are worth what it costs to replace you. And as a worker, most of the reason why you are valuable is not actually you. It's the context in which your employer put you. It's the machinery that you operate that they spent a fortune on. It's the client base that they've built up to sell the product that you make to. It's whatever systems they've got in place. The business is the machine. And you're literally being paid to be a piece inside of that machine. The value is in the machine itself.
Yeah. And there's something else as well that I think most people overlook. And I know you've read a lot of the same business books that I have. And one of the first things that people dismiss is the mindset thing. People either say, "Oh, that's too woo-woo," or "Just give me the meat and bones." And I think you actually made that comment last week.
I used to do that. I used to have that attitude, yes.
Yeah. And so with that, I want to unpack that just a little bit because I think it's really important for everyone. I didn't realize just how shallow people's thoughts were when it came to acquiring wealth was until I put that reel out last week. Like I said, a lot of the hate for Adrian was around the fact that he's amassed wealth at the hands of poor people, basically. So they're essentially, the punchline was that these people who are spending with LMCT plus, the way he's generated his wealth, are doing so not understanding what they're getting themselves into, which has two problems with it. One, you're saying that these people don't have agency and they're not able to think for themselves. So you, random person on the internet, are the arbiter of all truth and you know better than other people on how to spend their money. And what that does is start to create this like unbalanced worldview where people seem to go, "Oh, that's what you're spending your money on? I'm way smarter than you. Let me tell you about it." And it's frustrating because
it's elitist.
It is elitist, but it's also like, who are you to tell people how to spend their money? And this is a video I'm currently researching is, people will look at, say, LMCT plus, which is like a raffle, right? And go, "Oh, that's a waste of money." Well, I would argue so are any Temu, Shein, Cotton On, Kmart purchases. Because you spend
100%.
$5, $10, $15 and you throw it out in 6 months' time and do it again. And if you have a look over the last 5 years of your life and have a look at all those tiny expenses, whether it's Kmart, Shein, Temu, whatever, any of those things, go.
I want to pick up on what you said earlier about take care of the cents and the dollars take care of themselves, because my wife and I took the exact opposite approach. Now we've never been spenders. We're not in the habit of just buying things from Amazon all the time. We do that a little bit more now. We've got kids and there's more sort of needs that we have. But for the first 5 years of our marriage, when we had one kid and all the rest of it, we really very rarely bought small things. But it comes down to the level, like we've had periods of time where we've been genuinely very, very tight, down to the point that it's you're picking which bill you're going to allow to go overdue, right? We've been at that point in our marriage. And before I was married, I was at the point where literally the power got turned off on multiple occasions. So I know what it feels like. But we were down to the point where it was like, are we going to stop drinking coffees? Are we like, we're at that point. There's really no other luxuries. We're eating very, very basic foods. We made the decision to make a small number of big decisions to save us money, rather than having to cut out what was left of those daily little luxuries that we had. So to this day, we've been married for 11 years. We've got 3 kids. We've only ever owned one car, with the exception of a brief period of overlap where we still had the old one after we'd bought the update. All right. And then we sold the old one. So we're a one-car family in the modern world. Both of us working, both of us running our own businesses. We've got 3 kids. We've got all the same running around that everyone else has. We're a one-car family. That means we've got one vehicle depreciating. We've got one set of registration, one set of tires, all the rest of it. And the car is very, very cheap to run. We picked it because it was going to be extremely frugal as a vehicle to run, the car that we have right now. We've made a handful of other big decisions that you make one decision and it just saves you a chunk of money. We haven't had subscriptions. We haven't, signed up to every single streaming service and all of that. We have, I think, 2 now. I've got Amazon because I do all my books and everything come through Amazon. So I've got an Amazon subscription because it saves me money there. And I've got KO because my one sport is Formula One and I want to be able to watch that when it's on. We've made a small number of decisions that over time have saved us a lot of money. And that means that to this day, my wife still enjoys that daily coffee, the ritual of going out for a coffee. It's sort of, she works from home. She has a home office. So that's what gets her out of the house. So we've kind of gone the other way, look after the dollars, and you don't have to be too hard on yourself with the cents, if that makes sense.
Yeah, no, that makes sense. And look, everyone has their own way of doing it. But my frustration with Australians is this mindset, this mentality that if someone happens to figure it out. Now, I don't know Adrian. I've never met him, but I have seen like someone who works really hard and he's incredibly smart at marketing. You know, everyone.
Yeah, he's a marketing genius.
Brilliant. And he understands one thing is that the new currency today is attention, right?
Yep,
when you have attention, you can do anything. And that's, look, I don't expect everyone to understand marketing and, the digital spaces and whatnot. But what Adrian's been able to do, now you can argue all you like about how he's operating in a loophole, whatever. It might be a loophole, but that's the government's fault. That's the government's problem.
There is a loophole there.
For finding the loophole. And because you would have done it too. If you knew how to do it or you could have done it, you would have done it, right? And, I come back to that whole chicken in the noodle aisle thing, right?
Yeah.
People love to point the finger. Oh, your front nature strip's dirty. Your area isn't up to scratch. Meanwhile, their backyard is overgrown. And so what I'm trying to get you guys to see here is that often it's your attitude, it's your mindset that keeps you where you are. Not all. I'm not lecturing.
I was going to say, now you're the one making blanket statements. So let's not insult our entire viewership in one go.
That's not what I mean. What I'm trying to say is that I think culturally in Australia, we have this whole self-deprecation culture where we're always sort of, we don't want to take up too much space. We don't want to boast. It's considered rude to be proud of yourself or to be confident. And I actually feel like that's a disservice. You contrast that to Americans. Now, yes, they can be very bombastic. They can also be very annoying. I understand that. But for the large majority of them, success is something that they all strive for and they all want to get there. We don't have that here. And I think there's a lot of times where people try to emulate that sort of attitude here and they get shot down for it, which is why so much wealth leaves the country and so much talent leaves the country. And I was listening to, is it Unemployable Media's podcast today? And they gave a statistic, and I think it was 140,000 is how many millionaires or people with a net worth of $1 million have left Australia this year. And it's estimated to go up by another 20% next year. So this kind of mindset doesn't make it conducive for people to want to aspire to do things and to build things. And if I bring it back to Steve's comment before, here we go. Steve's leaving the chat. Sorry, Steve. He feels attacked. That's okay. When I look at those kind of comments, I think to myself, well, you're doing yourself a disservice and the other people around you, because what you're doing unwillingly is putting a glass ceiling on your own success and the people around you, because as soon as people start to do a little bit better, you're going to be like, oh, you mustn't be paying your workers very well. Oh, you must be, you must be doing it nefariously. And, Steve was defending himself in the thingy, but if you go back to his comment, he literally said people only get rich by exploiting others.
Right.
So
let's get to some people who are helping us to get rich, like Red Pilled Fabs, who's given us $2.99. Thank you, Red Pilled. Do you think Christopher will vote Castle Law down? I don't think Castle Law is going to get up under any of the current governments, Labor or Liberal, in this country. So for those who don't know, Christopher is up in Queensland. He's nominally a Liberal Party Prime Minister, and he has been good in a couple of ways, but in other ways really not. And their Castle Law petition, last I saw, I think it was at 80,000 or something signatures. Now, I might be a little bit out of date on that, but it's done really well. So well done, Queensland, on your Castle Law petition. So it will get debated in Parliament. The Qatar Australia Party are introducing, or maybe have introduced, I'm not sure, legislation to try and make it happen. No, I don't think it's going to get up. I don't think you're going to get Castle Law in Queensland this time around. But understand what you're doing is you're shifting the Overton window. You're shifting what is seen to be acceptable, because a little while ago, it wasn't seen to be acceptable to even talk about it. Now it's been made acceptable to at least have the debate. All right. And so then you get to the next government and you have another crack and maybe have a crack 2 or 3 times. And then finally it will get to the point where someone will get elected on the platform of promising castle law, right? Now that might be 2 elections or 3 elections away, and people get discouraged. They say, oh, but I want it now. And I come back to something that I used to say back when I was a dance teacher, a dance instructor. I'd have people come to me saying, oh, how long have you been dancing for? They'd be beginners, intermediates, maybe 3 months into their journey. And I'd say, oh, I've been dancing for 2.5 years. And they would look kind of crestfallen. It's like, oh, it's going to take that long to get good. And I would try and explain, oh, it's not that long, blah, blah, blah. And it never worked. It never cut through until eventually I just went to someone. I said, do you plan on being dead in 3 years' time? And they looked at me kind of shocked. And I said, well, if you're not planning on being dead, then the choice is, do you want to be alive and know how to dance like I can dance? Or do you want to be alive and still not be able to dance? Those are your options. And so for people that go, oh, what's the point? It takes too long. Nothing ever changes, blah, blah, blah. Well, do you plan on being dead in 10 years? Well, maybe some of you are of an age where maybe that's a possibility. But for most of us, no, we plan to still be alive. Okay, so do you want to be alive and live in a country that has castle law, or do you not? If you want to have castle law in 10 years' time, work at it like you want it in 1 year, and maybe we'll get it in 10. So no, unfortunately, Red Pilled, I don't think we're getting it this time around.
I think there's a misconception about how quickly change can be implemented as well. Like, as much as we all want change, and I'd love to see castle law get up, which is obviously why I put the Victorian petition through. But the issue that I feel like it isn't understood very well is that it takes so long for these things to move through. So whilst you and those of you who are kindly joining us tonight all agree on this sentiment, unfortunately, there's a majority of people who would think that's a terrible idea. And so you can't, it's like steering the Titanic, which is maybe a bad analogy, but, steering a big ship. You can't turn it on the dime.
I think it's a perfect analogy for Australia right now.
Maybe it are. Oh, God, I have to touch this one. Are you ready? Because this is going to send me this one. Adrian Portelli isn't a good example. The 2 Atlassian founders are Mike Cannon-Brookes and Scott Farquhar. Scott seems nice. Mike is an absolute wanker. If we're using the founders of Atlassian to be the moral,
if they're our benchmark, we're in trouble.
That's terrifying to me. Tell me, when was the last time Mike Cannon-Brookes went and put a tab at the local Coles in the West and said, hey, guys, come do your groceries, I'll pay for it? Anyone?
Yeah.
Anyone?
Yeah.
When was the last time that Mike Cannon-Brookes bought all his fancy stuff and let anyone come near them and sit in them and look at those cars and drive them around Melbourne roads? When was the last time that Mike Cannon-Brookes or Scott Farquhar put themselves around the little people? They don't. And Adrian, I'm not trying to defend him. I'm merely pointing the example that this kid grew up in Keilor, right? Yeah. I grew up in Sunbury. I know what that's like. And he went and did it big, and he hasn't left Keilor. I actually don't know, but I think he still lives out that way somewhere, obviously in a much nicer house. But he hasn't forgotten his roots, and that's what everyone always says. Oh, you've changed. Look, I'm telling you.
That's going to be a hard argument for you to win when one of his publicity stunts was putting a McLaren up on the whatever floor of his apartment building. So
did you hear his comment
I get where you're coming from, but I can also understand why people don't buy it.
No, that's his weekender. But contrast to Mike Cannon-Brookes, for example, you go look at him when he was like a little weedy looking dude when they were building Atlassian, and now he's got the Jeff Bezos makeover where they go and start to look a little bit sharper.
But that's the fun. You're doing that to me right now, Carly. Come on, you are literally. Carly,
I know that, but that's the success, right? But look at them now. Both Mike Cannon-Brookes and Scott Farquhar own prestige real estate around Sydney Harbour Bridge, or it's on around that area there. What's the super fancy? Is it Vaucluse or whatever it is?
I don't know, but you contrast that with someone like a Richard White. So he's the guy who's behind. Someone help me out here. He's big logistics software firm. They've gone global. They've done WiseTech. And he's done really well. He still lives in the same house that he grew up in. He's obviously completely redeveloped it, but he's still on that block, still in the same suburbs in sort of middle of nowhere, Sydney. And there is something about that. I mean, maybe this is my own tall poppy syndrome talking, but there is something about that and saying, okay, I'm going to stay where I am and make it better and make my area better and bring some other people up with me just by raising the area, rather than saying, oh, I've made it now, so long, suckers, and go and move to the spot where the rich people already are. I think there is something, I don't know, it's more noble about that. I'm not even sure. And this might be my own insecurities talking, but that just seems like a better path to me.
See, it's interesting you say that because, look, I'm not saying this is right or wrong. This is just merely my experience. Like, being a photographer affords me some incredible opportunities to be in the rooms with people I have no business being in a room with. And,
Right.
I think about like being at ARC, right? Like when we're at ARC, I'm in a room with billionaires. I'm in the room with like actual decision makers and like super, super powerful people. And then, I end up in other rooms taking photos and whatnot. And being the extrovert I am, I end up having conversations with people, again, I have no business having conversations with. And I have found that proximity is honestly the best way to see yourself start to succeed, whatever that version of success is for you. I'm not saying I want to be a billionaire, but there's a totally different mindset around it. So contrast this. Just before COVID, 2019, I was living up in the Bayside area of Melbourne. And I decided to move down to Geelong Way. I was in Armstrong Creek because I was trying to save on rent. And I had this idea that I was going to go and save some money to be able to buy a house. And then COVID happened. Lol. Funny.
Yeah.
But anyway, long story short, I got stuck in Geelong. And no disrespect to anyone in Geelong. I still do like Geelong. But there is a total mentality shift. And then as soon as COVID was done and we were allowed to move, I moved straight back up to Bayside Melbourne. And it was like the sun had come out around people who are actively doing things, going places. And, even like something as simple as fitness. Like we're back near the beach now. And I went for a quick walk to the beach and everyone was going for a jog, walking, like, everyone was out and about. And I do think proximity can be a really rewarding thing, even if, like, I'm not rich. I'm not a billionaire. You know what I mean? I don't live in a Brighton mansion, but I can still be there.
You like living around wankers. Let's just cut to the chase. It's, it's the wankier, the better.
Yes, I do. I'm elitist.
Right, we need to get through some more super chats. Speaking of the grift. All right. So Benjamin Fairhall says, YouTube search for this Tylenol for fevers. Are doctors horribly wrong? Pregnant, why risk even a small dose of thalidomide? This is a reference, I presume, to the blow up that's happening right now over the use of Tylenol or acetaminophen, as the Americans call it, Panadol, as we would call it, Paracetamol, for people who are pregnant. And what's really interesting is what Trump came out with was a bunch of studies. Now, I don't know who's right, but it wasn't a thought bubble. It wasn't just him mouthing off. And the reaction, like we've literally, and I don't know if they're just doing this for attention or if this is just mentally ill people or whatever, but the reaction of people going, pregnant women going online and taking videos of themselves for TikTok, taking large amounts, like unhealthy amounts, unnecessary amounts of painkillers. And let's not forget, paracetamol is one that can kill you. It is possible to overdose. It'll destroy your liver and you will die a very slow, painful death over a couple of weeks.
Well, this is like one of the first things that people try to do if they're trying to, do the unspeakable thing. It's usually like an OD on paracetamol. And I don't think people realize because like you have a think back to the 90s and the 2000s. It was like, pop a Panadol ads and Nurofen ads, Sudafed as well. They were very commonplace on TV. And I think a lot of people believe that aspirin and paracetamol are, perfectly healthy for you. They're not. They strip, I'm going to get the name of it wrong, starts with G. It's, they do something to your gut and there's my goodness, I'm going to ruin this. But essentially what it does is it resets your stores of certain chemicals that equalize your gut and also other things to do with your cognitive balance. I'll pull up Nat's thing because I was literally watching this a couple of days ago.
Look it up. While you're looking that up, let's blast through a couple more. Mr. Stu, always good to see you. Hey, Grifter, can't even chat without paying now. We'll quit your whinging, Mr. Stu, you stingy bastard. Come on, $2. You can do better than that. For those that don't know, Stu and I are very good friends, so I'm having a go at a mate. Joe Cameron says, maybe everyone needs their dopamine hit to make existence easier for a brief time. Yeah. Don't deny people simple pleasures. Simple pleasures. This is one of the things that really annoys me about all the nonsense with smoking. Now, obviously, I enjoy my cigars, which is a more expensive hobby. For those that are sitting there going, oh, he's talking about cost of living and smoking a cigar. I have a business partner. We import cigars. So I'm not paying the retail price on cigars. And I have to keep up to date with the stock and how it's aging and make sure that nothing ages out and gets too old. So I do have to sample our wares from time to time.
All right.
So that's how I do that. All right, you go.
Okay, I've got the thing about the Tylenol. So this is from a doctor, an actual doctor. So for the record, taking Tylenol or paracetamol if you have terrible pain, it's not a bad thing to do occasionally. But what it does, I'm going to terribly pronounce this, your glutathione, your master antioxidant and your detox hero, is wiped out by paracetamol. So when you're already running on empty, this is where we start to see issues. This is why hospitals use NAC, N-acetyl cysteine, for paracetamol overdoses. It refuels the, oh my God, these words, glutathione stores. I'm so sorry. I'm butchering this. I know. And here's
we need the book of words for tonight. We need the book of words. This has got to be in there somewhere.
But yeah, so there are actually disadvantages to taking paracetamol, which, I'm not here to tell you guys don't take it. It's more so like, there's a cost of everything. And I don't think see, there we go. Bronny's got me. Thanks, mate. Thank you. And Amanda's got it. Thanks, guys. I appreciate that. So, what I found so interesting around that, and purely from a psychological study, is anything Trump says, the progressive left will do the absolute opposite. Yeah. So if he says
with no thought.
But so much so. I mean, there was a couple of like really weird videos that went around that I can't conclude whether or not they're actually real. There's this story about a pregnant woman took it and then she was dying. I think I sent that to you. I don't know if that's true.
I saw that story. I haven't seen any verification. It's not completely outside of the realms of possibility, but it's also exactly the kind of sob story that people would write for clicks. So who knows?
Well, the fact we're living in a world now where that sounds plausible is quite concerning.
That's pretty sad.
But yeah, the interesting thing about this is, even Tylenol posted a tweet. You guys saw this on X saying, we don't recommend pregnant women take it. But the fact that Trump said it, everyone just immediately goes, this is, against science. Like there was even a screenshot of all the CNN headlines from the last decade talking about it. Yeah. And then obviously fast forward to 2025 and the entire attitude changes. And I'm not trying to convince anyone to vote for Trump or to be on our side of the fence, but merely look at that and go, guys, these reactions aren't normal. This is not how we're meant to operate.
We need Donald Trump to come out and claim that oxygen is essential for life. And then all the idiots on the planet will work very hard to prove him wrong. And the gene pool will get a good cleansing.
I'm a big believer in taking the warning labels off things, honestly.
Yeah. All right. So we did put this one up earlier when we were talking about Adrian Portelli. But Joe Cameron says, I find it annoying when people look at someone successful and use the word luck. More often than not, it's hard work. You're absolutely right. There is almost always an element of luck, but every single one of us gets a stroke of luck from time to time in our lives. To different degrees. That looks like different things for different people. But there are people who position themselves to be able to really make the most of it and run with it when they get that. And there are people for whom it doesn't make a lick of difference because they're just not, they're not thinking in those sorts of terms. So yes, and almost always the people that are really successful, even if there was an element of luck at some point, the luck was at least in part because of hard work, and the luck made a difference for them because they continued with the hard work in order to actually get them somewhere.
Can I play you that reel? I just feel like it's worth showing just to get people to. I'll tee it up because I'll finish with this, and then we're gonna jump over to a really sad story. But I'm gonna say something that will probably get me in trouble. So before I get cancelled off the internet, let's play this. I'm just gonna cue it up, and oh, hang on, I can only do one at once, can't I? Sorry.
Right. While you're doing that, can I just quickly address another super chat here? Shooter Down Under says the Shooters Fishers Farmers Party is trying to get red tape cut so that hunters can donate their meat to the homeless. Will you do a video about this? If you can send me through something, just send it through sofafield@gmail.com. send me through something. I'd love to see that, because it is a huge issue where hunters literally they can't even give their meat away. It's ridiculous. They should be able to sell it, to be honest. But yes, at the very least, to be able to donate it would be a good step. So Shooter, send me through an email, tofafield@gmail.com.
Isn't that alarming where you have a viable avenue to be able to feed people and we're like, no, it doesn't pass the bureaucracy. Like that's, I just, only in Australia. Do you know what I mean?
It
only
doesn't have the relevant paperwork.
Yeah. Anyway. All right. I'm going to add this over. Let's start it again. And Aussies are wasting no time jumping on their favourite pastime, a good old-fashioned tall poppy takedown. Adrian Portelli buys out Derrimut gyms, and the comments, absolutely insidious. So let's talk about it. Yesterday it was announced that Portelli had bailed out the struggling gym chain, and as predictable as ever, one scroll through Reddit or Instagram and it's the same old tired chorus. Portelli's a con, he's exploiting people, and if he's so rich, why doesn't he just give it all to charity? Well, Derrimut was in serious strife. Massive ATO debts, unpaid rent, and hundreds of staff at risk. Portelli steps in, negotiates, pays creditors, and keeps around 800 people employed. Like him or not, that is what capital does. That is money hard at work, saving infrastructure and saving jobs. But you won't see that in the comments because the outrage only ever cuts one way. Every day, CEOs of corporate monoliths siphon off cash into their Sydney Harbour mansions or their private jet, and no one bats an eyelid. So long as they play the game, say the right buzzword, they're an LGBT ally, or they're a climate warrior, all is forgiven. Let's take Mike Cannon-Brookes, Atlassian co-founder. Buys himself a $75 million private jet, but it's fine because at least he thought about climate change before he boarded it. Adrian Portelli cranes a $2 million McLaren into an apartment, and suddenly he's a crook, he's a scammer, and he's public enemy number one. And the people screaming about capitalism, well, they're doing it from their iPhones, wearing their Nikes, waiting for Amazon parcels and Uber Eats deliveries. They don't actually hate capitalism. What they hate is watching someone who wins at it. Where they should direct that energy is at cronyism, where monopolies are on taxpayer-funded bailouts, CEOs are raking in millions thanks to political mates rates, and they're getting their golden parachute, because that's actual corruption. But what Portelli is doing isn't being parachuted into some cushy role. He's literally carving out his own lane. And the LMCT plus outrage, well, when did everyone forget about agency? We've got everyday people rorting the NDIS scheme that now costs taxpayers $48.5 billion a year, more than our entire defense budget. But the second someone earning their own money decides to buy into this lottery, that's a scandal. Suddenly they don't know what they're doing. They actually hate Adrian because he built businesses while they're out blowing their own cash on coke for the weekend or the latest Labubu drop. They're maxing out their afterpay, drowning in Klarna debt, but sure, let's lecture the guy who built his wealth from nothing. It's like these virtue centuries just sit online waiting for their next target, screaming scam because it's easier than facing their own inertia. Adrian didn't stumble into this by accident. He dreamed of it, he risked for it, and he played the game loudly, and it's paid off. So what do Aussies do? They sneer. They call him a criminal, as if bitterness is a higher moral code. Well, it isn't. It's a mirror that reflects their refusal to even try. Tearing down people has never built a thing. It doesn't lay foundations, it doesn't hire staff, and it doesn't pay wages. Risk does, work does, and vision does. So before you start hating on Portelli, ask yourself, are you really defending the vulnerable, or are you just soothing the sting of your own mediocrity? Because if the only thing you've built is bitterness, maybe you're not the moral authority you think you are. Maybe you're just the chorus line in Australia's favourite pantomime, the Tall Poppy Parade.
Look at you, Carly. You're all grown up. That was good. That was great.
Well,
and your hair looks fantastic like that, by the way. You should wear your hair like that more often. Yeah, it looks really good.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Look, I've been putting a lot of effort into these reels, and in doing so, I'm just hoping to open up the conversation because it seems to get shut down very quickly. Tall Pop is one side of it. The whole other side of it is looking at other people who have something and then thinking that because they have it, you can't have it. And it's incredibly frustrating because every day we see in the news, like it's another NDIS rort or more waste of taxpayer spending. What I would love to see is just like a few more people realizing someone next to you doing well isn't your enemy. The enemy is the government around you who is taking all of your money, keeping you where you are and spending it. And I'm not trying to defend Adrian, like him, don't like him, but he's just one of us guys who did it well. Hate the people who are currently siphoning money out of the taxpayers. Qantas is a perfect example. Alan Joyce, I know the shareholders changed that so he couldn't take his full golden handshake, but remember during COVID, the Australian government was propping up Qantas. And meanwhile, Alan Joyce was set to take out almost $60 million or something.
Yeah.
How is that fair, right?
And Qantas is actually perpetually government supported, even when they're not handing over cash. If you're a government employee and you travel on Qantas. So every single bureaucrat and politician that has to get a plane trip anywhere in Australia, and most of the time out of Australia, are flying on Qantas. And so that's a significant amount of business for them to begin with. But the same is true of all of our media and so many different companies now. Even though the company is private, they don't receive any taxpayer support. The fact is, one of their biggest clients is government. The advertising revenue that was spent during COVID with all of our media organizations was enough to buy their silence. This is one of the reasons why the media organizations all fell into lockstep with everything the government said, federal or state, is because if either of those, if the federal government or the state government had withdrawn their advertising budget during COVID, the networks would have folded. So the government actually owns a hell of a lot more of the economy than we realize. Doesn't own it on paper. On paper, it belongs to shareholders. But the truth is the government's got absolute control over all of it. So no, you're absolutely right. And can I just say again, watching the way that you have just grown over the last couple of years is amazing. And those sorts of reels and the way you're putting that together, the graphics and everything else, keep doing that. There is a reason why your audience is growing so fast.
Yeah, well, what's interesting as well, and this is just a nice little aside from what I did. I mean, something like that, to be honest, it takes me about 5 hours to do it. I've got to research it, got to write it. I can see that. Yeah. Film it and edit it, right? So 5 hours, and I just merely want to make this point. No one's paying me to make that, right? That's me doing that off my own back, volunteering my time to do that. And I choose to do that, right? So here's the agency part of me. I'm like, I feel passionate about X. I'm going to do X off my own back. No one's forced me. There's no financial incentive. And then I put that reel out there, and then it went quite viral. I think it's almost at 300,000 views. And I got the attention of some very good people. Lamborghini Australia followed me, for frick's sake. And site inspections. Mr. Non-compliant.
This is like that is high praise indeed.
I've made it, guys. I don't know what his actual name is.
You know, if you ever get him in studio for a podcast, he's going to look at me and go, "Good from far, far from good."
I love that guy. I love his shows. Adrian himself followed me and a bunch of other people. And what I mean by that is, if you listen to the podcast last week, I was talking about how women lock each other out, and how, and I mean, that was the one that we're talking about where you gave me that really dodgy thumbnail.
You're welcome.
And so with that, right, I was talking about last week, for those of you who may have missed it, how, as a woman trying to network, like as a photographer, my entire job rests on the fact of my ability to network and meet more people and put myself out there. So it's a huge part of the job. And when I do that with women, I don't get a very big success rate. I like, this is my experience. I'm not saying it's everyone's. It's just me, myself. I have noticed that men are more willing to open the door, let me come in and volunteer, let me hang around, let me learn. Women, not so much. And so when you contrast that to what's going on here, I find it incredibly frustrating how do I say this without offending everyone?
When has offending everyone bothered you before? Why start now?
Yeah, I just find it interesting. So I've made a reel, right? I put the reel out there, and there was every opportunity no one would have seen it. And in the end, lots of people saw it. And now it's put me on the map, is what I was trying to say. So traditional methods of trying to like knock on the doors, send emails, don't necessarily work. I've made a reel. It got me attention. And now people know who I am, or like, have started following me, which is great. But like that wasn't luck, guys. That was, hey, I have an idea. I'm going to do it. It's going to take me time. I don't get paid for it. And the reward was being introduced or having a connection to someone new. And so as things change and as this media landscape changes, there are opportunities like that. But I think where a lot of people get frustrated is because you don't see the opportunity, and not necessarily all of you, but some people don't see the opportunities. Therefore, it must be ill-gotten gains, or they've done it through some kind of back channel,
Yeah. So can I pick up a common criticism that I hear is, oh, well, we can't all do that. And people say that about me from time. Oh, well, we can't all be, online influencers, whatever. And I say, well, you're absolutely right. If we all tried to be that, then we'd all be desperately in need of a plumber and a doctor and a truck driver and all that stuff. But everyone can do something. There's a guy that I know very well, and I have a lot of admiration for him because he works really, really hard for his family, and things aren't easy for him right now. And he's running a business that he doesn't love. He's not doing a thing that he's always dreamed of doing, but he's working hard to provide for his family and do the right thing as a man, as someone who is responsible for his children and for his household. And on the side, he's playing with AI, and he's going quite deep into AI, and he's getting it to do things for him that I don't know how to get AI to do for me. We've had some discussions around that, and I don't know if that'll lead somewhere hugely valuable for him or not. But the point is, he's trying to make his own luck. He's trying to find an opportunity. He's saying, hey, AI is the big opportunity. If I can wrap my head around this and get it to sing and dance for me in ways that other people haven't figured out, then I might be able to create an opportunity for myself and break out of this situation that I'm in right now. And I have nothing but respect and admiration for someone who simultaneously, he's not sitting back going, oh, I'm not going to work because I'm working on this dream, this moonshot. No, he's working his ass off, doing the right things every single day, and then putting his effort into that thing that he says, mate, this might be the thing. And that's where, going back to the comment that we brought up earlier about, people saying, oh, they just got lucky. No, people make their own luck. And not everyone can do what you do, Carls, or what I do, or what Adrian Portelli does. Yeah, of course, not everyone can do that, but everyone can find something. The problem is a lot of people have told themselves that they can't, and so they're not even looking.
Well, this comment here, I'm a bit confused by this. Sounds a bit communist. You don't get paid, but you get to meet someone. I think you missed the point of what I said. I said I went and did something voluntarily, and I put effort into something, and I got a reward. And that reward is basically like knocking the door down that I wasn't able to knock down before.
Yeah.
It was a different way of doing the same thing. Like it's a different way of networking.
So the principle here is very simple. In the modern world, you sell, and sales is a part of all of our lives, by the way. No matter what you do, you are selling all the time, in relationships, in friendships. Even if you're an employee you don't have a sales role, you are selling to your boss, you're selling to your coworkers all the time. Sales is a huge part of life. And it is necessary in today's world to open doors by bringing value. And this is where social media has created an enormous opportunity. The reason why Lamborghini Australia and the site inspections guy, etc., followed you as a result of that reel is because they saw value. Now, what they saw might have been different. So some people saw value in what you said and said, hey, I really value that perspective. That's fresh. I haven't heard that before. That's helped me, or that's confirmed what I was thinking. There's a lot of people that would be the value. For others, the value might be a strategic value. She's an up and comer. I want to keep an eye on her because sometime in the future, I might want to do a collab with her, or there might be something in this, right? So different people will see different things. When I say value, I'm not saying the same thing for everyone, but every single person that's followed me, 14,000 on YouTube, and, sort of the better part of 350,000 across all my social media platforms. Just a little flex there. The reason they clicked that button is because they saw something valuable. They saw something that they valued, whatever that was for them. And these days, you cannot establish relationships empty-handed. Value is so important, and bringing value in everything is a really, really important thing. And that includes in your networking. Bring value in your networking, and people go, all right, I see something in you, and now I want to get to know who you are.
Yeah, I mean, the other thing is too, when other people photographers, for example, are a dime a dozen. You're right. They are a dime a dozen, and you can have talent, and that doesn't necessarily mean you're going to have a successful career. What you do need, and it's the same for every profession, I'm just using mine as an example, is like an attitude of like, I will do what it takes. And for some people, they see that as like, oh, that's too hard basket, I'm not going to do it. And that's fine. You don't have to, but then don't turn around and say it's luck. But can I just interrupt this by saying this has ruined my night, because I normally sit here and drink a Coke Zero and quite enjoy myself. I have put in here an ice cube that must have been in the fridge for like 6 months, because my Coke tastes like refrigerator, and it's disgusting.
Do you want to go and get another drink, and I'll blast through a few of these these super chats here, but I do want to say you were talking about bringing value and just being really good at what you do, and I just think of Monica Lewinsky, like that's how she really made it in the world, was bringing value. So I think she's a really good poster child for that. I think your brain must have gone elsewhere and you didn't quite hear me. All right, so Pro Engineer, we put this comment up earlier. Hey, Oddies, don't forget to like and subscribe. Yes, please like and subscribe, especially if you're watching on my YouTube. Can you please go across to the Oddcast HQ and follow there? We're up to about 3,400, I think, and I'd love to see that grow even more. So if you could head across to the Oddcast HQ on YouTube and subscribe to that. BH says, I cannot see a way of stopping Australia going full commie. We did vote Labor in recently, this being a minor right candidate. I think this being you, being a minor right candidate. Yeah, it's concerning. What I think is happening here is we're watching an incredible clash take place. And Donald Trump getting elected was not on their list of things that was supposed to happen. When I say there, I mean the World Economic Forum, the UN. What are you laughing at now? G was watching the podcast and he's come up with the goods. You're a good man, G.
Oh, it tastes so much better.
G with the brownie points. G with the brownie points.
You know what I'm talking about? That taste, right? It just tastes like... I know
exactly what you mean. As soon as you said the ice was old, I knew exactly where you were going. So we're watching a collision. I just did a video about Keir Stammer and his announcement around the digital ID, which we do want to get to tonight. But talking about the fact that Keir Stammer and so many of the others, I'm just trying to think who, Mark Carney, the current Prime Minister of Canada. These guys are deeply involved with the World Economic Forum, and people say, oh, conspiracy theories, 15-minute cities, this and that. No. These guys are genuinely serious, and the World Economic Forum is proud of the fact that they have trained an enormous proportion of the people who are now sitting, in positions of power around the world. And these people were indoctrinated before they got their power. Oh, no, I'm about to lose my camera. High temperature. There we go. You can still hear me, though, can't you?
Yes.
You can still hear me. I'm going to switch my camera over to my bad camera. Edit camera settings. Hang on, I got to go down here. So
you've never looked better, Topher.
I know. I look great, don't I? Ta-da! Oh yeah, that's a good look, isn't it? Oh yeah, that looks great. Hopefully the camera will adjust soon. There we go. So these people are globalists. They were trained to be globalists from long before they ever got any kind of power. And now that they're in power, they're simply pursuing that agenda. And people say, well, why? Do you think there's some nefarious group that's pulling all the strings? Well, not quite. Not in the sense of like a Bond villain, type of organization, but in the sense of ideological bedfellows. Yes, birds of a feather flocking together. Absolutely, they are. And so that's why we see them pursuing the World Economic Forum's agendas, but also a trend that's happened in the last sort of 15 years has been world leaders not viewing being the prime minister or the president as the pinnacle of their career, but viewing it as a stepping stone. And so we saw that with Kevin Rudd. He used being the prime minister of Australia as a job audition, as a job interview for becoming the Secretary General of the UN. Now, his bid failed. It was blocked by Malcolm Turnbull, but that was in his mind. That was the progression. So when he was the Prime Minister of Australia, he wasn't thinking about how do I do what's best for the Australian people. He was thinking about how do I do what's best so that I can be the Secretary General of the UN. Keir Stammer is the same. Mark Carney is the same. Jacinda Ardern in New Zealand was the same. She's still hanging out with that crowd, hoping to pick up the crumbs of some future career with all of these globalist organizations. This is why they're ramming this stuff down our throat. Now, they thought that the future belonged to them. They thought that everything was going their way. The youth were a part of their movement. In time, all the old fuddy-duddies were going to die out and they would rule the world. Then Trump got elected the second time. And things have gone really wrong for them. Trump is marching away from all the climate change hysteria, which is very much the basis of a lot of their attempts to get control, is to be able to fight the climate, save us all from climate doom. Having America walking away from all of this stuff and leading the way away from all this stuff is really dangerous to them, because it means that future world that they thought that they could have a position of power in, that the very existence of that world is now in jeopardy. So this is the collision now. And I think what we're watching happen is a lot of these people are accelerating their push. They're realizing, can we talk about the digital ID thing from the UK? Are we up to that?
Yeah, may as well. There was one thing I wanted to touch on very quickly, but let's just go there. We're here now.
All right, we're here now. So you notice that Keir Stammer, he's 1 year into a 5-year term. They have 5-year terms in the UK. His announcement was really, really aggressive and very, very clear that they were going to do it in this government. In other words, there will not be another election between now and when they make this digital ID mandatory for everyone that wants to work in the UK. Why? Why is that so important? Well, because you're getting smashed in the polls. If there was an election held today, Nigel Farage would be the next Prime Minister of the UK. So he knows he has to ram this through. They know that this collision is happening, and they know that their window of opportunity is closing. And that's why we're seeing such an acceleration. We're seeing the rhetoric change from Anthony Albanese. We're seeing Keir Stammer try and ram this stuff through. We're seeing this urgency kicking in on their side. And this is why I said at the outset of the show, I feel like we're coming back to COVID times. We are walking into another conflict. Now, this might be the last great conflict of our generation. If we win this, then I think we will have broken them. At least they'll have to retreat again like they did after the end of the Cold War. They're going to have to take a back seat for a while and figure out how to rebuild and how to have another go at it in another generation or two. This might be the last great showdown, but this could be a 4 or 5 year showdown.
I want to bring this up because I think I sent this to you. So this was in Australia Financial Review, which is quite left-leaning. So, very kind to the ALP. And so obviously Albanese is going out and doing a whole press jaunt at the moment. So he's hanging out with Trump, or is it with Trump a couple of days ago? Now he's over with Albanese. And this address
with Keir Stammer
was terrifying. Did you watch this?
No.
So I'll just read you the second slide here. He made no attempt to hide the overt political nature of his keynote appearance on a UK Labour conference on Sunday. Introduced by his mate, in inverted commas, Keir Stammer as an inspiration to all of us on the left and a key partner in standing up to the divisive politics of the right. The Australian Prime Minister issued a full-throated call to arms for the Labour movement globally to act as the gatekeepers of democracy and the institutions that underpin it. I don't know about you, but that made my blood run cold. I thought that was terrifying.
Yeah, and it is, because when they talk about democracy, they don't mean it in the sense that we've experienced it since the end of the Second World War. That's not what they're talking about at all. They're talking about democracy in the sense that the People's Republic of China is a democratic republic. That's what they're talking about. One party state where really they're just fighting over who gets to be at the top of that particular totem pole. This is why Labor has turned Victoria into a one-party state, California into a one-party state, Minnesota into a one-party state. We're watching these places move away from a democratic system where there are multiple options vying to a democratic system where really one party's already won. Before you've even held the election, you already know who's won in California before you've even held the election. So the contest is about who can be at the top of that party. What that does is that rewards extremism. For as long as there's two parties vying, then electorally you get rewarded for being moderate, for appealing to the people in between. Once there's only one party that's definitely going to win, you get power within that party by appealing to the most extreme elements of that party. And so as soon as you cross that threshold into one-party state status, your political future is really bleak, and it is you're destined towards increasing extremism.
Well, what I have noticed recently, like I said, I pay a lot of attention to the comments and a lot of attention to the conversation on socials. And this is not necessarily directly related to what we're talking about, but there is a contingency on the left that are now abandoning all of these massive progressive movements. And the big one is the Palestine movement. And this is just something that's been popping up in the last couple of weeks, because a lot of the rhetoric around this is it's a cult, and people are starting to go, hang on a minute, this is going too far. This is not what I signed up for. Now, we saw that around the whole Charlie Kirk thing. We're now seeing it around the Palestine movement. Now, I'm not saying yay or nay around Palestine or Israel. I'm talking about the people who are marching every Sunday in the city, the people who have made this whole Palestine thing part of their personality. There is this blind faith, this whatever Trump says, the opposite must be true. Whatever the right-wing nut jobs say, the opposite must be true. And you got to look at even that comment from Albanese, the divisiveness of the political right. They can't help themselves. They need to constantly remind you of this division, of this hatred, constantly fan the flames of this hatred. Now, in contrast to that, when it came to the Charlie Kirk stuff, for example, the right, or the people who supported Charlie Kirk, just wanted to go and mourn the loss. They weren't trying to get up and do political speeches. The left made it political. The left have to keep introducing this. And so with this whole digital ID thing, I was watching the Lotus Eaters talk about this today because I just wanted to understand it from a UK citizen's perspective. They know Keir Stammer is done. He knows he's never getting back in. And it is very likely if it were to go to election that Farage would come in. But there is such anger from the national crew of the UK. I'm not talking about the people who have migrated in the last decade. I mean, your UK nationals, they are done. So obviously with Tommy Robinson leading the charge and things like that, what you're seeing is there is a huge grassroots element here. And a bit like all of you guys in the chat, everyone's kind of fed up. Everyone's angry. No one's quite sure where to channel that energy yet. And that's kind of how these revolutions go. And it was interesting in that speech that Anthony Albanese gave is the one thing that Labor politicians need is time, because everything takes time. If you want to balance the economy, bring the housing crisis back down, you need time. What they're saying is you need to keep voting for us because we will solve that problem. We just need a one-party state. And the same goes for revolution. I mean, we've talked about this a couple of times now. It takes time to change things. The pendulum doesn't swing back overnight. So whilst you can get frustrated and fed up that the change isn't happening quick enough, I think you go and have a look at some of these parameters. There is a genuine colossal shift. Even in the US, the amount of people who are done with the Democrat Party because of the super progressive nature of it. I think the Charlie Kirk thing made a lot of people go, holy shit, I'm standing with people who celebrate murder. That's not what I signed up for. The Palestine thing, I'm standing up for people who want people to be genuinely slaughtered. I didn't sign up for that. There is hope, but I think we are literally at that final battle and it's going to get ugly. I really do think so.
Yeah. This is a huge collision that's happening. If I can come back to this comment one more time before we move on. The social change that I've been talking about for a few years has now become quite obvious. I've talked about it at length. I'll talk about it very briefly. Every revolution, every culture breeds its own counterculture, right? The sexual revolution of the 60s was a counterculture to the 40s and 50s and the conservatism of the United States. And every revolution the revolution always eats its own children. And it's when you see both of those things happening at the same time that a big social change is on. And we see that both of those things are happening. I've talked about that before. So what we're in the middle of right now, and it started, I would say, in 2022 and became obvious to me in 2022. And then it's become, I think, obvious to everybody that we are witnessing the next great social change since the sexual revolution. This is a 1 in 60 year event. This is a once, maybe twice in a lifetime event that we are witnessing happen right now. And it's quite incredible. Now, what happened with Charlie Kirk and the reaction to Charlie Kirk, the reason why that resonated as deeply as it did is because it is pushing the social change that was already happening further in the same direction. It's the reaction to that was this righteous indignation of a group of people that had already begun to move. And now they're moving faster and they're moving further and they're growing in number than ever before. So that has put that social change on steroids. History may well look back and say that it was the assassination of Charlie Kirk that did it. I would argue it was already well underway, but it was quiet. The assassination of Charlie Kirk made a lot of people get noisy and get loud. I'm really, really, really optimistic about the future, but we have to get through a hell of a fight over the next, I would say, 4 to 5 years. We have to break the will of the people that want to dominate humanity and raise this social consciousness to the point that we reject them instinctively. We reject them at a cultural level, not at a political level. Politics is downstream of culture. Once we get to the point where we are rejecting the very idea of that kind of dominance at a cultural level, then we'll be okay for a generation. But then, of course, in the following generation, it comes around again. Every generation has to do this. This is our turn. Past generations have had to fight for freedom against tyrants that invaded them from other countries. Our generation has to fight for freedom against tyrants that have taken over our own countries. That's the difference, but it's the same fight.
So on that, when you talk about culture, something I am definitely seeing a massive shift on, and I try and present some good news occasionally because it can feel really overwhelming, but this is some good news. So you're familiar with the whole, if you have nothing nice to say, then don't say anything at all, right? We grew up with that. Now, thanks to social media, now you've got the whole Mike Tyson quote, right? Social media is making far too many people being comfortable, being disrespectful, thinking they won't get punched in the face. You look at the last, I'm going to say the last 10 years, maybe a little bit longer than that, maybe 15 years, the offended culture. Everyone around like the 2007, 8 started to say, oh, that's offensive. And then it wasn't until the woke movement really took hold that people started to go, you can't say that, right? So all of those PC police came into full effect.
Yeah.
What I'm realizing now, and I think more than ever since the Charlie Kirk thing, maybe it's because I'm looking for it, but I definitely see this. We had fuck around, find out. Now we've got, I don't owe you nice anymore. I don't need to be nice to you anymore. Conservatives and people who have what I would say strong values tend to hold themselves to a higher standard. And you might have someone who's on the left who's, going to be like in your face and yelling at you, the kind of people that go to the marches and they don't care and they're on social media ranting, your Abby Chatfields, all those kind of people. The equivalent to that on the right is this, you and I having a chat.
Having a conversation.
We don't tend to get worked up like that. We don't get screechy. Not to say that we don't get worked up, but for the most part, like if we're trying to get someone to understand us, we're not going to do it like that, without any emotional regulation. What I'm seeing now, particularly around socials, is people aren't taking this crap anymore. So like, for example, someone will come into the comments and start writing something nasty. And then other people are like, no, fuck off. I'm done with this shit. No more. We've given you way too much. And I know that seems really small, right? You think, oh, how does this play into things? Well, what it means is it's culture. People are starting to go, I've had enough. And they're expressing it on such a small, what seems like a small shift. That across the world is seismic. People are starting to go, no, I'm not going to tolerate 100%. Your craziness. No, you're not going to sit here and tell me that I'm a racist and that I'm a bigot, right? People are done. We've been told that they're a Nazi for simply going, hey, maybe you shouldn't mock a widow whose husband just died.
Yeah, that's right. Now, I do want to touch on that, but I want to come across to this question from Joe. Carl's, the UK is putting through a leaving tax if you wish to leave. Thoughts? I think it's imprisonment. That's directed at you, Carl's. I'm going to open the door to my studio and get some cool air in here because it is getting really seriously warm. You go.
So with this, what you're seeing here is exactly that. People are the government is trying to stop the wealth leaving. They know exactly what's going on. They know this is pushing people away. And so thanks to things like Bitcoin and, crypto exchanges, people are now realizing there's other options, which is why they're trying to hammer in this digital ID. They are trying to get you into a system to stop you moving around. And how else can they do that? Well, you think about a digital ID. The thing that scared me the most about Stammer saying this is how jovially and like maniacally he said, you cannot work in the UK without a digital ID. Now, working is a human right. Trying to take someone's human right away because they don't have access to a smartphone that has an app that has their digital ID. Well, that seems like a very egregious breach of human rights. But look further than this. What they are trying to do is stop people from moving. They want you to stay where they can control you.
Yeah. They're turning the UK into a tax farm. But I want to go back to something. So you mentioned earlier the Unemployables podcast. So I just went and recorded with them a second time. Was that 2 Mondays ago? And I think they'll be releasing that shortly. And I told them, I went through in detail, the first time I podcasted with them, look up the Unemployables Topher Field. I went through in detail the 5 key indicators that tell you that you're in a collapsing economy. And the last sign, which and I said these words, when you see this start to happen, the window of opportunity to get out is closing. That's what that tells you. The last one is capital controls, specifically to control capital flight. So you mentioned earlier that there's an enormous number of millionaires moving out of Australia, out of the UK, out of Canada. It's happening right across the current and former Commonwealth countries. Because people with money are realizing, hang on, I'm not welcome here anymore. I'm not wanted. They don't actually recognize that I created value. They think I took it, that I took value. And so what's happening now is we're beginning to see the rumblings of capital flight controls. And this is, an exit tax is a kind of capital control. It is creating a disincentive for people to leave, to take their money with them. Now that's not full-blown capital controls yet. That's another thing. But that's the beginnings of it. And so what we are seeing now is genuinely, I think, in Keir Stammer's mind, he has to have all of this in place and the door has to be shut by the time the next election comes around. Because if he misses that deadline, he knows the UK is probably going to go the direction of the US unless he can head that off between now and then.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting because you obviously got a lot of people moving to, say, Dubai, a lot of people setting up safe havens, a lot of people moving money different places. And is it Adam that's in charge of unemployables? Is it Adam, the main guy?
Yeah, so he's moved to Cyprus.
Yeah, he's big on the crypto. And look, I understand crypto. I'm not a massive player in it. To be fair, I don't have net worth that's that exciting to put into crypto. But what I'm seeing is there are so many new opportunities popping up, and there's what I see as an entrepreneur is, okay, wow, where can I maneuver myself so I'm in the best position when things start to move? And seeing things like the rise of AI, crypto, and things like that, there are so many opportunities coming that are going to dismantle this new centralized system. But have a think about the government, right? Anytime the government tries to take control of something or roll something out, it always goes to shit. Just looking at the digital ID in the UK, how do they plan to implement this, right? You have to think, what's the population of the broader UK? Is it like 50
I
million?
thought it was 25 million, but I looked it up a little while ago and I was surprised by the number. Let me look it up again.
I'm pretty sure it's around 50 or so, if you include Wales and
69 million, I think, for the entire United Kingdom combined.
Yeah, okay. So 69 million people, and I don't know what percentage of those people would be over 18. I'm presuming you need to be over 18 to have a digital ID. Who knows? Think about that. How in the next couple of months are they going to be able to build the infrastructure and the system to be able to make this work and implement it without a hitch? It's not going to work. So basically what's going to happen is if you want to get a new job,
I'm going to disagree with you because they're going to use the infrastructure that's already been put in place in China and Vietnam. So the Alibaba group are the ones that technologically are behind a lot of that. And J. Michael Evans, the president of Alibaba, is also a WEF alumni, and he's the one who was boasting about how they were working on a personal carbon credit system where people's personal carbon credit scores could be calculated, which is where I think the UK digital ID is going. So I hate to disagree with you, but I actually think that technologically that is something they'd be able to pull off because they won't build it from scratch. They'll outsource it.
Look, yes, maybe so, but have a think about how hard that's going to be on the smaller levels, like around regional communities, around smaller businesses. How are you going to make people adopt this technology? All of a sudden, you can't move around, you can't do anything without this digital ID. I think, maybe I'm being too optimistic. I don't think there's any way the average UK citizen is going to sit there and take that. You know, you can't swap jobs without this supposed thing. Like everyone, there's always going to be opportunities. There's going to be a black market. There's going to be a way to get around it.
The black market will be huge.
Yeah, I think it'll be repealed. But like the beautiful thing is, I mean, it's you that says good people break bad laws. Correct. Even with the Blade Runners, right, running around and knocking down all those cameras. There's going to be a way where people will slowly dismantle this, and I always fight for the people who figure that out. Do you know what I mean? Like, I don't want 100%. People to get too caught up in the doomsday. It's terrifying, but I think there's enough of a groundswell that people are going to start to fight back. I really do.
So the Blade Runners and the public reaction in the UK against Sadiq Khan's ultra low emissions zones. So the Blade Runners, for those that don't know, are a self sort of described group, but a very informal group. Leaderless, mostly anonymous, that run around cutting the cables or cutting down the ultra low emissions zone cameras. Now, these are cameras that were put up around London to basically charge you a fee if you drove a vehicle that wasn't an electric vehicle or a hybrid vehicle into the middle of London. And actually the area that's covered has gotten bigger over time. And it's a deeply regressive thing. It's offensive to human rights. It's offensive that you would charge people an extra tax on the basis of whether they're rich enough to have an EV to use the roads that their taxes already paid for. There's lots wrong with it, but it's the thing that I think is really stuck in people's craw over in the UK is that it's deeply regressive. If you're a plumber trying to go and service someone's building in the inner city, all of a sudden you're getting charged, I think it amounts to about 20 or 25 Australian dollars a day because you've driven your diesel ute into the ultra low emissions zone. And so these people popped up and they just started doing it. And I believe it's mostly organized on Telegram. And what's really interesting about the way they operate is people will go and take photos of the cameras and scout where they are. And they will also take photos of the CCTV cameras that can see the camera so that they can get full kind of reconnaissance. And they're not the ones doing the cutting down. They're taking those photos and putting them into Telegram groups because that's not a crime. They can't get into trouble for that. And then other people are using that to then scope and figure out what they're going to do and how they're going to approach it. And then all of a sudden, the next morning, there's a ULEZ camera lying on its side, and none of the CCTV cameras managed to catch a glimpse of a number plate or any identifiers that could tell them who it was that did it. This is entirely organic, and it is the absolute cutting edge of civil disobedience. I do classify this as civil disobedience and not as vandalism. I've had people push back on me on that. I go into detail on the nature of civil disobedience and what makes it civil disobedience in this, my first book, Good People Break Bad Laws. But what makes this civil disobedience, in my view, is the property being destroyed is there to take away people's property rights. Those roads belong to the taxpayers. The government is putting in place infrastructure to take away people's access to the infrastructure they paid for. It is the government that is actually vandalizing the public property and stopping the people who paid for that public property getting the proper use and enjoyment out of it. So I would argue that in this case, the government are the vandals. They are destroying the value of public property. And the so-called vandals, the blade runners who are cutting those cameras down, are actually restoring people's access to the property that they paid for and that they own. Now, if one of them was to throw a punch against Sadiq Khan, at that point, without question, they've crossed a line, right? There needs to be no violence. There needs to be no physical intimidation, no threats, nothing. But if all they're doing is going out at night and to steal the words of Dietrich Bonhoeffer, being a spoke in the wheels of the machine, right? That's what they're doing. I wholeheartedly approve. And the fact that this movement arose organically in a moment of need in the UK, I think is one of the greatest signs of hope for the UK.
Yeah, and that's kind of my sentiment around the digital ID. I do believe there will be people, I don't know what that will look like, but I dare say there's people already thinking of ways that they can get around it. And humans are good like that. You know, I think people forget that prior to social media and the internet, we were pretty savvy at figuring out how to do very difficult things. And I think we'll only see that now. I think we have underestimated how good life has been for the last 30, 40 years. And now things are getting challenging again, and it's going to force us to start to assess the way we tackle these things. And there's, like I said, there's going to be so many opportunities. And we kind of saw that in COVID. Like, I don't want to say anything to incriminate myself or anyone I may know, and everything I say next is alleged. But, you know, when that stupid vaccine passport came around, like, how many of you guys saw all those, you know, how to get a fake here and how to do this here and whatever? And realistically, all you had to do was flash this stupid thing on your screen. So, you know, it was like, oh, if you don't have it, you can't work, you know, you must comply. But realistically, like, all you had to do was maybe find a way, and it was possible.
And we've seen that in Australia. So let's not forget, there is officially a digital ID in Australia. It just doesn't apply to everybody. So it applies to company directors. If you're the director of a company, you have to have a digital ID. Well, the funny thing is, so many people didn't go and get it that they postponed its implementation, and then officially it was implemented, but they're not issuing fines. They're not trying to enforce it. They're making life difficult if you don't do it, and I haven't done it. But they're not actually successfully able to push it through, and that's only on one segment of society, right? They're just, people's apathy actually worked in our favor in that case. People just went, nah, stuff you. I can't be bothered. I'm not doing it. And so Keir Stammer is going to have the same thing in the UK. There's going to be those people that are ideologically opposed, which I would be in that category. But there are also just going to be people that are like, nah, stuff you. Like, no, I'm not doing that. I'm not going and getting another piece of paper from the government just so that I can keep doing the stuff that I already used to do. So there's a maxim: the abundance of laws breeds contempt for the law. And things like this digital ID is just going to dramatically increase the number of people who go, you know what? I ain't playing anymore. I'm not doing it.
I think the other thing is as well, like, you have to think about how exhausting modern life is, how many things that you have to attend to on a daily basis that require attention and require output, right? People are done. People are exhausted. And not to detract from the seriousness of what we're talking about, but another little cultural shift I'm seeing is people going, I can't do TikTok anymore. Now, you think about Gen Z, they are the TikTok generation. These kids, or they're not even kids anymore, I should stop saying kids, but these young adults have been immersed in that subculture for so long. And that is where a lot of this indoctrination comes from. They are fatigued by it. So much so, I think I've mentioned this podcast before. It's called Shameless Media. They are a very successful women-led podcast that are very left-leaning. They're not political, but they are political. Everything on the left is political. And I don't listen to their podcast, but I follow them on Instagram because I'm keen to see their snippets and what they talk about. And they were talking about how South Park is still very successful. They're like,
Right.
the average Simpsons episode takes 8 months. So by the time they get a Simpsons episode out, then and you think about the volatility of the world that we live in today and how quickly the news cycle moves, right?
Yeah.
So
They've missed the
if
zeitgeist.
they've missed it. And so they might
Yeah.
have been doing something that was culturally trendy or relevant, 8 months ago, but we've already moved on. We're like, what? I can't even remember what that was. South Park are able to do it, and they turn it around very quickly. And so, yes, it's left leaning and it's satirical, but that is kind of where people are shifting their attention to, because you just cannot stay on this treadmill running around 100 miles an hour, absorbing all this stuff on TikTok, as well around the ideology of the left. Now, this is where the good news is. You think about all the social justice movements that have arisen in the last 10 years, whether it's BLM, Ukraine, Palestine, it doesn't matter which one, pick one. It is exhausting because it's a purity test, right? And you get to a point where now, people are literally celebrating murder and doing horrible crimes. I mean, just yesterday, or maybe it was today, there was another shooting of a church in the US.
A Mormon church got shot up and burned. Yep.
Right? And people starting to go, I didn't sign up for this. I didn't sign up for people getting murdered. I didn't sign up to be on the crazy side. And so these things are all happening at once, right? And whilst, yes, it's very dark and some of the things that our politicians are trying to do are very bleak, but when you have a look at all these small pockets, there are little fires burning everywhere. People are done. Not only are they done, they've been taxed to high heaven. There is no surplus cash, and people are starting to get frustrated. And so, this is where I do understand the pushback on Portelli is, he's very wealthy and he's living a good life. And so there's a kind of, how dare you? Like, I'm doing it really tough. This isn't fair. I understand that sentiment, but that's kind of a good thing. Like that anger builds energy. I'd rather anger than sadness, because sadness just leads to apathy. But this anger is useful. This is where we can funnel this into a movement, whatever that looks like. And you pick your cause and channel it that way.
Yeah. But what's really important in these moments, and this is why I do what I do, is there are also people trying to capture that anger on the Marxist side of things. They're trying to say, all your problems are caused by capitalism. If you just give the government more power, then we can solve all these problems for you. Communism's the answer. Socialism's the answer. Community organizing, eat the rich, all that stuff. So there's people out there preaching that message, and it is a religious message. I use the word preaching deliberately. So it's very important for people like you and I and people who are watching this to also be out there in the public, because yes, there are people that are angry. There are people that are hurting. One of the things that I observed very early on in my time as a political commentator was that people don't care about politics until it hurts them. And then once it hurts them, they will wake up to some degree. It's different for each person. But there's a lot of people hurting right now, which is a terrible, terrible thing. But the silver lining is, as a result, there's a lot of people kind of getting active and interested for the first time. And it's really important for voices like ours and everyone in the audience watching to be out there engaged in that debate, because there are people trying to capture that anger and direct it in exactly the wrong direction. And that really cuts back to the cultural stuff that you talk a lot about, Carly.
Yeah, I just want to touch on this comment here. So for those listening to the podcast, it says, Carly, your liberalism is still the crazy side and only marginally less crazy than the Marxism. So from my estimation, 1984 Punks, the guy who's written this, is quite far right, which is fine. You do you, mate. But the thing that really gets my goat is people telling me how I think and feel. And so this here is so unhelpful. I am now at the point, I told you before, I don't owe anyone nice. So forgive me if I'm getting a little bit sassy, but they don't call me spicy for no reasons. These kind of comments, I can't be fucked anymore, honestly. Like, you can sit here and tell me whatever the fuck you think I am. That's not what I am. I'm going to tell you what I am. And that's the power of all of us having our own voices and access to social media. You don't need to take people like this pushing shit down my throat telling me how I think and feel because it doesn't align with their ideological viewpoint. I'm telling you quite clearly, I have a very rational, common sense approach to life, but there's always going to be people on the fringes of left or right telling me that it's not this enough and it's not that enough. The far right is just as fucking terrifying as the far left. As we know, it's not a political horizontal line. It's a circle, and these guys meet eventually. So when you talk about crazy, mate, you're closer to these bloody nutso left-leaning people than I am. But anyway.
All right. This is his follow-up comment, and I want to comment on this one. Topher, Kylie, you and Topher are liberals. You are lefties, not conservative. Okay, so that sentence is actually internally incoherent, regardless of whether you mean liberal in the current Australian scheme of things, as in the Liberal Party. They hate me, and with good reason. I'm an absolute thorn in their side. Or whether you mean it in this, you've used the small L here, so I'm guessing you're probably referring to the classical liberal, which is what's known as a libertarian. Libertarians are not left-leaning. The entire point of libertarians is you do you. The entire point of being a libertarian, the entire mantra of being a libertarian is, one, the non-aggression principle, and two, you're the best person to make your own decisions. We believe in letting people keep their own money. That's not exactly a left-leaning thing. That's not a Marxist adjacent thing. That's less taxes, less regulation, less government intrusion, more individual agency. That's not a left or a right thing. Both the left and the right believe that if you gave them all of the power, they could fix all of the problems. Right, the left are basically Sauron, and the right are Boromir. Right, in Lord of the Rings, Boromir is sitting there going, "No, if you give me the power of the ring, I can use it to protect my people." Right, that's what a conservative is saying. They're like, "No, you give me all this power, and I'll do the right thing with it." No, they won't do the right thing. Don't trust them, but give it to me. I'll do the right thing. That's what's happening on both sides of the left and right. Small L classical liberals, these days known as libertarians, completely reject that the government actually has any of the answers at all. So I'm sorry, but this sentence is actually internally incoherent. It doesn't even make sense within itself.
There's a follow-up question, follow-up comment there that was basically like, libertarians believe in immigration and abortion, and I'm not in the mood to have that conversation. We'll do that another time.
Let's get back to...
I'm going to change the pace, because I'm going to say something that's going to be considered outrageous, but I'm in my don't give a fuck era. So, you know how we've been talking...
Do we need to get through some super chats first?
Have we got some super chats?
We have a lot of super chats that we have not yet got to.
Okay, let's go through the super chats.
All right, put a pin in that thought, because I want to get to it, but let's do some super chats first. Guys, buckle up. This is going to be a long episode. So, Pro Engineer said... Yeah, feel free to buy us a coffee. Ta-da! I read something a while ago that said most people taking paracetamol for headaches, it doesn't actually work well for that. The relief mostly comes from the accompanying glass of water. I drink a lot of water, but when I get an early, so I'm prone to migraines every once in a while, but I get a long warning. I get a lot of lead time on my migraines for whatever reason. And if I notice that it's a slight detachment, it's like I'm watching a computer screen rather than in real life. And as soon as I notice that, two paracetamol and 2 ibuprofen, and I lie down for an hour or two, and that kills it. It's good. I'm good after that. So I would argue that in my case, certainly paracetamol does make a noticeable difference. And if I just take ibuprofen, because I have tried, it doesn't have the same effect.
I think if you're a migraine sufferer like I am, you don't give a shit. You just want anything to take that pain away. Like, for all of you guys who suffer migraines in the chat, hit us up.
Yeah.
But look, there are people who do pop Panadol for like silly things, because, well, to be fair, that's how it was marketed. Oh, got a little bit of an ache here, take a Panadol. I find that if I haven't eaten, Panadol makes me feel really not good. Like, it must do something to my stomach. But yeah, I think, I don't know, like, I just thought this was a natural, like, deduction that if it's a pharmaceutical drug, you don't just go take it willy-nilly. Like, I only take it when I need to.
Have a reason. Yeah.
Yeah. I'm not just going, oh, I feel a bit Palanel.
Daniel Moore says, luck is when you work hard for 10 years to be an overnight success. Well, there is that expression that you're obviously referencing, Daniel. It takes 10 years to become an overnight success. I think I must be an idiot, though, because it's taken me 16 years to become an overnight success. So I must be a bit slow. I'm just a bit dumb, I think.
You know what? Sorry, back on that success one. I've been doing a lot of reading recently around people who have success incrementally. So what it means is, like, when you look at anyone who's really made it, whether it's a Bezos, a Disney, any of these people who we would consider like generational success, most of them had a huge succession of failures, right?
Oh, yeah.
And, a little bit of success, failure, a little bit of success, failure, a little bit of... And then overall, the overarching view of their life is incredibly successful later on. And I kind of feel like I get left behind. Like, I had this, like, what about me kind of thing all the time. I'm like, oh my God, everyone's successful. Wait for me. What am I doing? And I have to give myself a reality check. And I was listening to good old Gary Vaynerchuk the other day, and he was talking to someone else who was about to turn 40. And he was like, oh my God, you're so fucking young. Like, this is embarrassing. You're so young. And I was like, oh, am I? Oh, yeah. Oh, good time. Okay. Thank you. So, Yeah.
Well,
It takes
well, this is
time.
the thing. This is the thing. Colonel Sanders, KFC fame. He is the colonel in Kentucky Fried Chicken. He started KFC, I believe, when he was 70. Now, he didn't live to see it become the juggernaut that it is, but he became phenomenally successful within his lifetime. And there's a reality of humans. We adapt to our current environment. And there's a fun thought experiment that I like to play. I may have done this with you before, Carly. I'm not sure. But if you knew that you're going to live for 80 years, right, you're having a chat with God before you're born, okay? And he says, right, you can pick one decade of your life to be really wealthy. And all of the other decades, you're not going to be destitute, but you're going to be working. You're going to be peddling to, you're going to have to think about how you're spending and where your money's coming from and all of that. Which decade do you choose? Which decade, Carly?
To be super, super wealthy.
To be wealthy enough that during that decade, you can do anything you want, but you don't get to keep any of it at the end of that decade. At the end of that decade, you get reset back to normal, average Joe life.
I'm probably going to say my 40s. Is that the wrong answer?
No, there's no wrong answer. It's an interesting exploration of your own set of values. So for me, I wouldn't want it to be under 40 because it'd be wasted. I'm only 43. I look at it now and I go probably my 50s. I wouldn't want it to be so late that I've begun to lose physical or mental
I was going to say,
sharpness.
like, all I could think of is I'd travel, and I was like, I want to be able to travel properly. But I can say this as someone who saw fairly good success in her 20s. And I was that exact stereotype. I saw success and I burned through it. Don't get me wrong. I had a great
100%.
time, traveled a lot, had a lot of fun. And,
Yeah.
In hindsight, I wish, because it's not always like this, and it was like this for a very long time. And then it started to go like this. And before I realized it was like this, I didn't have the wisdom to see that. I do now, obviously. That's how you learn it. Well, but it's interesting. I feel like in your 20s, it's sort of wasted on you.
Well, I've told the story before about how Dick Smith got in touch with me and he offered me the Wilberforce Award. You can Google it. He was offering $1 million to someone 30 years of age or under who was willing to be the face of his campaign against a big Australia. And this is why I laugh when people, accuse me of having flip-flopped on immigration. Like, I knocked back $1 million when I was 30 years old, and he reached out to me. I've told the story before. He flew me to Sydney. I went to his house. He flew me in his helicopter. He spent an entire day trying to convince me to accept $1 million because he'd seen my videos. And he said, I want you to be the face of this campaign, because he was doing the campaign. He'd written books. He'd made documentaries, but no one was listening to him. He decided that was because he was too old. He wasn't the right spokesperson for it, and he wanted a younger person. He literally offered me $1 million to be the face of his campaign. Now, for context, I was 30. I was broke. I was actually living in a friend's house at that time. I was only about a month out of that period of time that I mentioned before, where I was sleeping on the street for about a week. I was still living in a friend's house. My parents were losing their house due to their own financial circumstances. And so $1 million would have made a really big difference. And I turned him down because I don't believe in being opposed to a big Australia. I think we're an underpopulated continent. And frankly, I think we're an underpopulated planet. But that's a different conversation. I didn't believe in what he wanted me to say. And he wasn't trying to be manipulative. He was just trying to find someone who was going to be the energetic young face of something that he truly believed in. And I said, Carl's tangent time. Tell everyone how you locked yourself out of the house this morning. We'll get to that, Carly. And I said no, because I couldn't ever buy my integrity back. And I've second-guessed that decision, or I used to second-guess that decision into my mid-30s, until I realized by the time I was in my mid-30s, I went, I would have squandered that $1 million. Not that I would have, gone and spent it on drugs and hookers, but I would have frittered it away and dabbled and made stupid decisions. And I would have nothing to show for that $1 million now if I'd have gotten that as a 30-year-old man. Now, if something were to happen and someone said, hey, $1 million, here you go, I would be way better. I'd be way more astute now as a 43-year-old than what I would have been as a 30-year-old. And I think that would make a massive difference to the trajectory of the rest of my life, because I would make much smarter decisions with it. But back to the thought experiment, which decade would you pick? I would say 50 to 60, because you're still young enough. I know when you're 30, you don't think 50 is young, but 50 to 60, you're still young enough. You've got your health. If you look after your body, you can get out and have a lot of fun. There are lots of people doing extreme sports into their 50s and 60s. I'm not an extreme sports kind of guy, but you can certainly travel, explore, enjoy the world, live life to the full. And I certainly wouldn't pick my 20s or 30s or even my 40s. I wouldn't pick this decade that I'm in right now.
I feel like, look, to be fair, I've had a bit of a different life to most. I've always felt like a bit of an old soul, but I turned 40 in January next year. And coincidentally, around the time that we have our 1 year show. So party, guys.
Ooh.
Let's have like my 40th and our 1 year show all together.
Yeah, nice.
It's weird. Like I'm not worried about the age at all. That doesn't bother me. But I actually feel really excited coming into this next decade because I feel like my 20s, I got a bit of a taste for it. And, I was a 20-year-old, like I did silly things. In my 30s were really difficult. I think so far, if I look back at my life, I'm hoping that my 30s were the worst decade because, boy, when I say character building, obviously COVID, the liquidation of my business, like it was pretty tough. There was a lot of learning. Moving into my 40s, like I feel like I don't obviously know everything, but I'm excited. Like even just doing this podcast with you and opportunities and seeing AI, I'm like, holy crap. Like I now know how to use my time effectively. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's blast through a few more of these super chats because otherwise we won't get to them. We're an hour and 50 in and we're only halfway through the super chats. Right. Joe Cameron. Now, Joe, you've done a lot of super chats tonight, so thank you. We appreciate your support. Qantas has gone down so much. How a CEO can dump stock on the market after what he did and knowing how many people he hurt is reprehensible. The corruption is disgusting. Yeah, it isn't corruption in the normal sense of the word. I refer to this as kind of corruption in plain sight. They don't have to hide it. It's not brown paper bags under the table. It's in a contract that they signed.
So he did.
Yeah, he could. So he did. Exactly. And yeah, that's that is definitely. Yeah, I agree with your sentiment.
What Alan Joyce did to Qantas is just despicable, absolutely disgusting. They've devalued the frequent flyer system. They have put ideology above, specializing in their services. I mean, there was a whole hoo-ha recently. They've ordered 3 planes that are only going to have 3 toilets, I think it's the 737. And so there's all this like hoo-ha about that at the moment. And interestingly, Qantas is obviously in damage control. They've come out basically saying that, this was a new plane that we ordered. And at the time, there was only the option for 3. We are going to convert it and take a row of seats out to put a 4th toilet in there. But it just goes to see, like, even just that comment, like that, the commentary around that. We are now at a point where aircraft travel, like, we had it figured out, yet it seems to be going backwards. We had it really good. Now all of a sudden it's like, there's no leg room. You can barely get to the bathroom. I mean, think of those couple of planes. I think it was a Virgin flight, to be fair, that went to Bali and all the toilets were broken for 8 hours. Can you imagine?
Yeah. How horrific.
Horrific.
Yeah, how utterly unsanitary. Mr. Stew, thank you for increasing your super chat by 10 cents. Do appreciate that. If you could just keep that rate of increase going, then by the end of the year, we'll be making some good money out of you. Luck is where preparation and opportunity intersect. For those that have joined the chat, Stu and I are good friends. I've been giving him a hard time over the course of this show. Yes, that is exactly right. Where preparation and opportunity intersect. That is what other people look at and go, oh, he got lucky. Yeah. Daniel's another friend of mine that I know in real life. Very, very hardworking guy who has made the best of some really tough situations in business for himself, and has just outlaid another $3,000 over the next 12 months to hopefully grow my business. There is no guarantee it'll pay off, but you have to do everything possible if you want to succeed. And that's the difference between someone who wants to be self-employed and has that self-starter motivation. Yeah, you've got to take risks. I'll give you an example.
Sorry, I was going to say, tonight, as soon as we're done here, downstairs, I have about 60 hoodies that I did as a fundraiser for my exhibition. And prior to joining this podcast, G and I have spent the whole afternoon cleaning and emptying out our old house. I've got dirt under my fingernails. Like I'm so exhausted. No, as in like it's going to be there forever now. My whole body aches. I've jumped on to do this live with you, and who knows how long this is going to go for. And then I'm going to go downstairs and pack 60 hoodies before I go to bed tonight. That's not luck. Do you know what I mean? Like there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes that people don't see. Yeah. So just keep that in mind.
And neither Carly nor I are asking for your sympathy. We chose this. This is the profession that we've chosen. But my standard day starts at 6 a.m. and I don't typically finish working until after 9 p.m. most nights. I will take a break at lunchtime and I'll take a break at dinner time to spend time with the kids and the family. And 5 days a week, I'm genuinely doing 12 to 14-hour days of work 5 days a week, and then I'm doing some work on the weekends as well. And
which
people
is
are going
why
to look at me.
You for coffee.
Well, yeah, exactly. Keep us going with coffee. And again, we're not asking for your sympathy. This is what we've chosen. But people are going to look at us in the future and say, "Oh, they just got lucky. They, whatever." They'll have their narrative around it. No, we saw an opportunity. Yes. We realized what our giftings were, which is communicating and helping people to unpack what's going on in the world, etc. And we leaned into it and we did the work. And that's why the success is coming and will come for us. All right, the new camera. This is my laptop camera. Looks looks like CNN Orange Man bad edit. Yeah, you're not wrong. I need to get a new camera. The camera I've got is actually really good, but clearly it doesn't handle how hot the studio gets, unfortunately.
The old Sony issue, eh?
The old Sony issue. Joe Cameron again. The digital ID thing is awful. It's a prison. Back to Australia. Would it be too much to ask if a minister actually had experience in what their ministerial portfolio actually does? This is a huge problem. You've touched a massive problem here, Joe. And this cuts back to, sorry to keep promoting my stuff. I talk about this in here and the way that politics works on the inside. These people are not given a ministerial position because they're the best person for the job. They're given a ministerial position because they're trying to keep all the various power brokers internally with all their different factions happy as they do their ministerial reshuffles and figure out who's going to be the prime minister and all that crap. It is nothing to do with competence or expertise or anything. And even worse now, becoming a minister in a portfolio isn't about doing a good job in the portfolio. It's about carrying favor so that when you leave politics, you get offered board positions on the companies that you handed contracts to while you were a minister. The whole thing is completely perverse, and government has completely forgotten that it is a servant and not a master.
Can I interrupt for 2 seconds? I need to show you this comment. And I can answer this, but I feel like you'll do better. You ready?
There you go. So, Liberty Prime. This is actually a good topic. All right. So I thank you for bringing it up. Anything that other people see value in is valuable, whether you call it a job or not. Whatever. A job is an arbitrary definition. The question is, do I bring value? And the only arbiter of that are the people who watch. And right now, there's 1,620 people watching live who believe that there's enough value for them to want to be here and say, "Hey, I'm going to keep listening." Now, there are lots of people who get out there and try and do what Carly and I are doing, and nobody tunes in, right? And they can persevere for a year, 2 years at it, and still get nowhere. And the reality is, what's happening there is people are saying, "I'm sorry, you're not bringing enough value. I don't want to put aside my time to watch what you're doing because I don't see value in it." So you can call it a job or not a job, whatever you want, but it's very, very clear. I mean, over the journey, I've sold multiple thousands of books. Not a single person has come back to me and said, "Hey, I want my money back because I didn't get enough value out of that book." Not a single person. People watch my stuff and go, "Hey, I want to tune in next week." They subscribe. They're seeing value. So we could argue about whether or not it's a job. Fine, whatever. It's very clear that what Carly and I do bring value, and people value it enough to want to tune in the following week and tune into the next show and keep watching my videos on YouTube and Carly's Reels on TikTok. So if you focus less on whether it meets your definition of a job and focus more on, are you bringing as much value as you can? Because if you figure out how you can bring more value to the world, then simultaneously you're going to start to be more successful because one comes with the other.
You are way more magnanimous than I was going to be. Let me tell you, I like Liberty Prime. If you want to see what work goes into, firstly, just 2 episodes of this podcast a week, and then also how long it takes me to put some of those social media clips together, mate, by the time you're done, you'll realize it's a bloody job. But anyway, enough of that.
But that's
boring.
But that's the wrong debate. Trying to justify whether or not it's a job is the wrong debate. The fact is, if people see value in it, it works. If people don't, it doesn't work. Clearly, people see value in it. Just
right,
a few more.
Can I do my
okay, fine. You
yet?
can get to your thing. We've just be aware. There's at least another 10 there that we haven't got to.
Well, I do really want to get to this thing that I want to talk about. It's about youth crime, right. And the thing that we said would happen has happened, and we need to talk about it. But this is just a palate cleanse. So talk about tangent time.
All right. Tangent time, tangent time, tangent time, tangent time. It's not as good with this camera. I need the other camera.
I'd hate to be new here and not know anything about tangent time.
That'd be so confusing.
They're like, what is this tangent time? Okay, so new house, right? Moved in. And it's lovely. It's like got a lot of mod cons that maybe I'm not familiar with. And anyway, moving in on the weekend, I saw a stray magpie. And I'm a little bit scared of magpies. And I was like, hey, sure. I'm going to make friends with this magpie. So I went inside, got myself a little jar of pecans, and I threw one. And then he told all his mates, and then there was 4. And now I have adopted 4 magpies, right? This is important information. So now these magpies, since being here for like 2 days, will now out the front of the house And that means go get your pecans, bitch. We're hungry. And so much so that I was literally sitting there this morning and I'm, working away and they're and it's actually really loud. There's 4 of them going and they're on the doorstep. They're not like they're right there. Anyway, so I go out and I think, all right, I'll feed my birds because I've got 4 pets now. So I'll go inside, grab the pecans, come outside. And unrealizing that behind me, the door has closed and I'm, feeding the pecans. Magpies are all happy. And I'm like, right, I'm going to go back inside. Now, just to paint a picture for you, no shoes on, no phone, no keys, no wallet. The door has slammed shut and I am now locked out of the house. There is no entry point into this house. I can't get in my car. I can't tell anyone that I'm locked out of the house. I also have no keys, no way of getting into the backyard even. And I'm like, this is not good. And today was the day that I had so much work to do. And I'm like, seething. So on our front door, we have a Eufy doorbell. And G and I get notifications like, when someone rings the doorbell or whatever. So I'm like, right, I'm going to pester G until he answers the doorbell. And he's like, what the hell's going on? So he can call the real estate agent to say, she's locked herself out of the house. She's coming down. Thankfully, they're only like 2 kilometers down the road. So it's not too far. It was walkable in bare feet. Anyway, I'm pressing the doorbell thinking this guy's going to bloody answer. He doesn't. And then I'm like, by this point, I'm just so annoyed. It's like 11 o'clock in the morning. And here's me walking down barefoot. I must have looked like a meth addict. Honestly, I hadn't left the house. I was not ready to leave the house in this state.
Had you put your face on, Carly? Had you put your face on?
No, I hadn't even brushed my hair. I was looking disheveled as hell. And all I could think is like, I'm going to go in there and they're not going to believe me and I can't prove who I am. And that's why I was trying to get G to answer the doorbell so he could preempt them and be like, hey, my like crazy girlfriend who's very disheveled is coming in. Anyway, thankfully the heavens like smiled on me because I walked in there. It was the same lady who gave me the keys and she's like, hi. I was like, hi, I've locked myself out of the house. And she's like, oh no, how's the move going? I was like, great up until now. And she's like, oh, you've got no shoes on. I was like, I've got nothing. May I have the key, please? And she's like, oh, do you want me to drive you back? I was like, no, I deserve this walk of shame so that I never do this again.
That is the ultimate walk of shame. It's not even holding your shoes. You've lost your shoes. You look like the ultimate. I won't finish that sentence, but yes, it looks like a walk of shame.
So now I've adopted 4 magpies. I'm a slave to them and I got locked out of the house this morning. So my life's going well.
So I read a story on the internet recently where someone did almost exactly the same thing. They accidentally adopted a whole bunch of magpies. And while they were out the front one time, all their friendly magpies had been fed and they were hanging around. She got swooped by a different magpie. Oh. And she said that the other magpies that she'd been feeding all went and attacked the magpie that swooped her and taught it a lesson. So they've got kind of their own little like justice system going on where they're like, no, she's off limits. You don't touch her.
Well, that was my thing because I know it's baby season and they're literally in a nest just across the road. And so have you ever been swooped before? It bloody hurts, man.
It hurts. It's genuinely like if you're riding a bike, I mean, these days you got a helmet on, but yeah, if you hear that sound, it's terrifying.
Yeah, and you normally don't hear it coming. And then it also, I had one tear my ear a long time ago, like I was in primary school, and they were known in this area, and we would walk with sticks. And for whatever reason, I obviously didn't get it, and it tore my ear open. So I'm a little bit like,
yeah.
So anyway, I now have friends, so it's okay.
All right. So there's a topic that you want to get to that's a little bit dark. Let's get to that because we're at the 2-hour mark now.
All right. So you and I have talked about youth crime extensively. We've talked about how nothing will happen until the unthinkable happens. And just for the record, before I get into this story, I'm not making light of this conversation at all. This is terrible. And I'm very sorry for the loss here. But over the weekend in Morwell, an Aboriginal boy was murdered by 2 teenagers with a machete. Are you across this story?
No, I'm not actually. I wasn't aware.
Okay. So I'll bring up the article. And I want to be sensitive. I'm not trying to be facetious here, but so this is the article. His name was Caden Morgan. He's 18. Hang on, add to stage. There we go. And he was found with serious injuries on Morwell Street, and essentially he bled out and was unable to be revived.
Yeah.
Tragic. Wow. Firstly, absolutely tragic. Just this is what, the third one in less than a month. I can't remember when the two in Melton happened, but far too many. Too many.
Yeah. Yeah.
The reason I wanted to bring this up, firstly, tragic, right? And this should not be happening. But there's an element to this story that makes me wonder, and I hope you can see where I'm going with this. This man was Indigenous, and he was very active in the Indigenous community. So I'm just going to scroll down a little bit here. I was reading the Sydney Morning Herald article where they talked extensively about what he does, and he was very active in his cultural dancing, making art, and he was very proud of his heritage, basically.
Sure.
And now he's slain, right?
Yeah.
I find this really interesting because now it's someone that, how do I say this without being really insensitive?
You kind of just got to call it what it is. He's someone who is on who the left has said for years that they care deeply about, and he's the protected minority, right? Like Aboriginal rights. They are at the top of the pyramid when it comes to social justice issues. Now one of them has been senselessly murdered. And I want to know how Georgie Purcell is going to talk about this, because she's the progressive left MP who's campaigning on bail saves lives. You know where I'm going to go with this, because guess who murdered him? Two teenagers, both out on bail. Both or one. I think if you scroll up a little bit, I think it said one was out on bail, but yes, nevertheless, same difference. We've got, this is exactly what we said was inevitable, and I share your disappointment and disgust. It's a tragedy whenever a young person is killed, and that includes, by the way, young people that have lost their way. Not that I'm saying he has, but even other young people. There's always this argument of, oh well, he was probably mixed up in it all. Well, that might be true, but that still isn't how we want their lives to end.
Read and in that this case, there. One of the kids now in custody is fearful of retaliation in custody. So you've just killed someone, and now you're worried you're going to be killed.
Yeah. So this is the other one.
Seriously wrong here.
Yeah. So one of them was out on bail. This Mr. Fenton, it says he has no prior convictions. So presumably not out on bail, or if he was, then he's not been found guilty of anything in the past. He was still working through the system. But this is what we talked about, where nothing is going to change with the situation in Victoria until one of two things happens. Either someone who's in a protected minority group gets is one of the victims, and that's what's happened here. The other scenario was whether someone defended themselves against someone who was one of the minority protected groups. And they were killed in the process of that. And neither of those is a good outcome. But this one here, I mean, it's difficult to talk about without getting instantly called all kinds of things. But at this point, are they finally going to realize, hey, we've got a serious problem and we need to fix it, or are they just going to keep releasing violent criminals on bail forever? I mean, at this point, it seems like the latter.
I cannot get my head around this. I mean, I feel like I've said everything I can say about youth crime, the machete bins, all of it. But, now these are kids. They're being murdered, right? 18 years of age, and murdered by a 16 and an 18-year-old. Something is so wrong here. And it's wrong on multiple levels. It's wrong on the justice system. It's wrong on a school system. Like, what are these kids learning? How are they learning this, right? I know when I was 16, I wasn't thinking, oh geez, I want to go break into a home with a machete. Like, why? There's something about the socialization of these kids, their complete abandonment of any values or morality. You think about the two Sudanese boys who were murdered a couple of weeks ago. One of them was 12. 12. He should be freaking playing Pokemon or like basketball. Like, what the hell is happening? Murder shouldn't be on the table. I don't get it. No. And apparently it's taken, I'm just reading this here, it took Jacinta all day to make a comment. What can she say?
Yeah.
What can she say? These are her bail laws. This is her state. This is her government.
Yeah.
What's happening is on her watch. I mean,
Yeah.
you know how I feel about her, but it's not me or you that we've got to convince. It's the people who think she's doing a great job.
Yeah. And a couple of weeks ago, we had David Limbrick MP, who's one of the good ones in the world, on the show. And he said something that I it didn't sit comfortably with me, but I let him kind of talk. And to be clear, I'm a huge admirer of David's. But this particular comment where he said that, these things take time, these revisions to the bail laws take time, and getting the justice system ready to be able to hold all of these people rather than releasing them on bail, is going to take some time. And I don't really buy that, to be honest. We've got a highly dysfunctional justice system. That's true. We do have prison overcrowding. That's also true. But we do also have empty prisons that they've mothballed, and actually some of them quite recently built that they haven't really put into service. And when you've got people being murdered on the streets and you're releasing violent criminals, and I want to be specific here, people who committed a violent offense, who were then bailed while they were awaiting trial, who then committed another violent offense while they were on bail, and then got bailed a second time. Those people are running around doing whatever they want because they think they're immune. They think that nothing's going to touch them, nothing's going to hurt them. I don't have a lot of patience for any excuses about how hard it is to uprate the justice system to be able to hold those people in custody. Find some other people who maybe shouldn't be in custody and put them out on bail. There are people who are in prison for non-violent crimes. How about we put them on bail and we keep the violent ones behind bars in their place? At this point, I mean, one of the most fundamental promises of government, and I'm very cynical of government, but they make a couple of fundamental promises. We'll build the roads, we'll look after the healthcare system, and we'll look after the justice system and crime. Well, Victoria is failing on all of those fronts, and I mean failing badly. There was a recent audit on their roads that found that 1/4 of all Victorian roads fall into the lowest category for road maintenance, for the road condition. They're in the lowest category that they have available. 1/4 of all the roads in Victoria. If you follow my social media, you'll see I blew out a tire hitting a pothole in Victoria only, 2 weeks ago, not even 2 weeks ago. Blew a decent-sized hole in the sidewall of a tire. Thankfully, they were old tires that were due to get replaced the next day anyway. But that's beside the point.
Just to add my little 2 cents here, I now have a bolt this big inside one of my tires. My tires are not cheap. I've got all terrains on the Jeep, and there's a massive bolt in the front of it. Like, the state of Victoria is just, and you think about how many people are bottoming out in those potholes. Like, luckily I got a big car, but imagine being like a little Hyundai Getz or something, hitting one of those potholes at 60 k's an hour. You'd square off your rim if you don't,
Or a motorcyclist. That can be fatal for a motorcyclist. You hit a pothole on a motorbike, you'll end up on the underneath the truck in the other lane coming the other way. I mean, it is a matter of life and death for those people. But back to the crime thing. This is one of the most fundamental promises of government, right? You pay your taxes, you do the right thing, you obey the rules that we make for you, and we will take care of crime and criminals and make sure that you're safe. Now, I don't think that's the government's job. I think that should actually be an individual responsibility. That's another story. That's what they promise. That's what they say they will do. That's the advertising based upon which they say taxes are the price we pay for living in a civilized society, right? That's the shtick. And they're not doing it. And they could do it. It's not a hard thing to do. But this is now a matter of will on the part of Jacinta Allen. She doesn't want to face this problem. And I hope that the silver lining, obviously the death of an 18-year-old is tragic, but I hope the silver lining is that the particulars of this case might actually spur enough outrage to get something done.
Well, I mean, I think we've seen where Jacinta's priorities are. She's just in China doing a Chinese tourism tour. Hey, come to Victoria where you're likely to bottom out in a pothole or get murdered by a teenager wielding a machete. It's insulting. It's insulting to your intelligence to watch these politicians get up there and say that, we're going to have the toughest bail laws in the country. But what I will say, again, looking at the culture, looking at the conversation, you've got your popular TV hosts, radio hosts like Fifi and Fev and all that. For those of you who don't live in Melbourne, they are the popular breakfast show on the radio. And it's now at a point where they've been on this train for a while now. Your Jackie Felgates at 3AW. And it's annoying. It's taken them so long, but they're on it now, which is great. When people start to join the train, you got to welcome them, even though it's frustrating. I think it's now getting to a point where there is a groundswell again of people who have just had a gutful. And like I said before, Your average person, they're not the go out and grab the pitchforks kind of people. They're sitting there going, what the hell's going on? Why is something being done?
Yeah.
In a weird way, we need that because that kind of raw energy will be useful. And unfortunately, I mean, in COVID, we didn't get enough of it. But now
Sure.
I think you can only push people so far. You know, knowing now that, like, if you've got a teenager in Melbourne, and even in Burke Street today, like, I don't know if you saw the news, and I know this is very Victoria-centric for those of you who don't live here, but in Burke Street Mall, that's our big shopping centre in the CBD, right?
Yeah,
And
walking only, no cars.
no cars allowed. And oh gosh, what was it? 15 years ago, there was a terrorist attack in Burke Street where a man was driving,
drove a car through, killed multiple people. Yeah.
and screaming Allah Akbar. So people that, for that reason specifically, there's all these big concrete pylons. So today, teenagers were driving through the city recklessly in a stolen BMW and causing a massive hoo-ha in Burke Street Mall. Trams had to be diverted. So basically it's school holidays down here at the moment. So disrupting a very, very busy part of the CBD. This is every day. It's no longer an exception. This is Melbourne. This is Jacinta's Melbourne. And while she's she's back now, but while she's in China organizing her Chinese tourist campaign, people are getting murdered in the streets. That's not hyperbole. That's the reality of Victoria.
Yeah. And unfortunately, I hate to sound cynical, but I don't think she's over there organising tourism for Victoria. I think she's over there organising her career post-politics, the same as what Daniel Andrews did, the same as what he did.
I agree. And sorry, go.
We need to get through some more super chats. So Ricky Hammer says, by the end of the decade, Australia will be alone, weak, and a laughing stock. I assume that that autocorrect kicked in somewhere in there. I think laughing stock is what he was trying to say. I disagree. Like I said, I'm very optimistic about the future. I think we've got to get through 4 or 5 really tough years. I think that the alliance with the US will hold, but I think that the Australian people have to get really angry at the Albanese government. The Liberal Party need to deal with net zero, and I was very pleased that Tony Abbot this week came out and threw his support behind the Liberal Party ditching net zero entirely. That was a theme at the CPAC conference that I was at 2 weekends ago. A lot of Liberal Party and National Party heavy hitters coming out saying we've got to get rid of net zero altogether. That was interesting, actually. Let me segue on this for a minute. So the Liberal Party have a very tense relationship with the CPAC conference. So CPAC stands for Conservative Political Action Committee. It's an American thing, pardon me, but Andrew Cooper brought it to Australia. Warren Mundine is the chairperson, and a couple of heavy hitters. And the Liberal Party thought that it was going to be their plaything. It was going to be their conference. It's the Conservative conference. But 3 years ago in Sydney, I did Battleground Melbourne Live, which was we did Battleground Melbourne Live. Carly, you were there on stage with me, 4 of us, telling our stories from the COVID era. One sec. Excuse me. And the whole room was crying. The whole room was moved. And then later on that same session, there hadn't been a break. 4 Liberal Party members came out to do a Liberal Party panel. And they sat there, and one of them actually said verbatim, the Liberal Party fundamentally did nothing wrong during COVID. And they started to get heckled from the crowd. They started to get yelled at. About 35 people staged a walkout from the room. Nigel Farage was in the room. He saw us do Battleground Melbourne Live. He was in the room that day. And he starts joining in the hecklers. Nigel Farage is joining in the hecklers. And he starts shouting at the Liberal Party panel, read the room at them. And they couldn't understand what was happening. They thought this was their conference. They could just get up there and grandstand and talk and they'd be lauded. So what happened then was last year, the Liberal Party of Queensland put an embargo on the CPAC conference. No Liberal Party member in Queensland was allowed to go to the conference. This year, they've realised they have to actually try and mend that bridge because the conference is amazing. The conference they're running now is phenomenal. It's the best conference in Australia. And so they sent along, they couldn't send Susan Lee, the leader of the Liberal Party right now, because she would just be torn to shreds in a room like that. Yeah. So they sent Ted O'Brien, who's the deputy Liberal leader right now. And I'll say to his credit, he got heckled, but to his credit, he handled it really well. Now, he did not join in the call to put an end to net zero. He can't. Under Liberal Party rules, he's a front bencher. He has to abide by the current policies of the party room under the Liberal Party rules. But he handled the room well. He handled himself well. And around him were a bunch of Liberal and National Party heavyweights, the likes of Alex Antic, Jacinta Price, Senator Matt Canavan, who were all unequivocally saying we have to ditch net zero. And Tony Abbott, obviously former Prime Minister and Liberal Party heavyweight, has come out this week saying the Liberal Party has to ditch net zero. So I'm actually optimistic that we will go to the next election with a real choice between the Liberal and Labor Party, where the Liberals will have actually rejected net zero, and that will be their main selling point against the Labor Party at the next election. And I think that should that then be successful and should they be elected, we will see a realignment and a reunification back with Donald Trump. He'll be in his last year of his presidency there in the US when that happens. And I genuinely believe that he'll be followed by probably JD Vance, but almost certainly somebody following in his footsteps. I don't think that he's going to get enough backlash, especially now with the Charlie Kirk thing and all of that. I think that the next president is going to be someone following in Trump's footsteps, and that we're actually going to enter a really good era after that in Australia. But we've got to get through the next couple of years and dodge digital ID, dodge carbon prices, dodge all of the soul-destroying, country-destroying stuff that they're trying to shove down our throat in the meantime.
I think this is the dying throes, the final throes of dying animals. What you're seeing at the moment is, I mean, the Lotus Eaters said this today on their podcast. They were talking about Keir Stammer knowing that he only has this Parliament to be able to push this through. They have to do it. And this is all under the guise of Tony Blair. This is a Tony Blair think tank, right? Where he's been advocating for digital ID for years. And this is their moment. This is all they've got, which is why, you said it before, it feels like it's all happening really quickly.
Yeah.
Because they don't have much time's running out. And so in that, though, the messaging is really off. And if you've already got a voter base who's frustrated, who's struggling, and you're seeing this, unfortunately for them, it's not going to work out well. I don't know what this looks like, but I think in Australia, there is going to be huge amounts of resistance to anything that the government does to try and bring in something like this whilst not addressing the actual problems. Like, for example, this youth crime thing, that's costing Labor the next election. I think the Liberal Party here is disgusting. They need to get their act together. But with that being said, I don't think at this point in Melbourne, voting for Labor pretty much guarantees this state's done. And I think most people get that now. Yeah.
All right, let's keep blasting through. We've got a couple of Palestinian ones. This is not something that Carly and I spend a lot of time on, but they're super chats, so we're going to talk about them briefly. I don't know if you've heard about this. I know nothing about this. Greta got schooled on Palestinian gay rights. Does that mean anything to you?
I read something about this. I try to stay away from Greta. I just find it so fucking annoying. But I do know that there's a mutiny on their boat, and she got removed from being in charge or something. I don't care enough for the details, but I did see that. Another boy who cried wolf moment, declaring that they've been attacked by a drone. It's kind of the same old thing. Oh, we don't have enough attention. What can we do? Well, let's invent something. I find it really boring.
Yeah, no, I agree. Now, this one's pretty grim. So this is from Patrick, the random roadie Van Roast. Who else saw the Australian nurses working in Gaza that had to do a C-section on a decapitated mother? I'm all for Israel, but that's fucked. I haven't actually come across that one, so I can't comment. Yeah, so sorry, Patrick. Yeah, not going to make a comment on something I don't know anything about. Larry Jones says, are you drinking cold coffee in a glass? No, I had a cup of tea. So black tea goes really well with a cigar. It's one of my favorite things to pair. And I have water. And I have actually, I didn't mention this. This was actually given to me by a friend. If you're watching, thank you very much. You know who you are. This is Spirit Thief. It's a Tasmanian distillery. And they actually won the World Wine and Spirits Competition, the gold medal in 2022 in New York. And I've got to say, it tastes like it too. It's an absolutely beautiful, beautiful drop. So I'm enjoying that. I had a little bit when I did a show. I do a cigar show every month with some friends. And so I had a little bit then. I'm having a little bit more now. And that'll probably last me a good 4 or 5 more shows.
Are you being a beverage goblin?
What do you mean? Oh.
Beverage goblin is having multiple drinks all at once.
You mean the thing that I've teased you for doing before? Yes, I do now. I do now remember. Yes, I guess I am. Tea, whiskey, and water. Yes, okay. Guilty as charged. Found Hope says, I'm 45, last of Gen X. What I grew up with and what I see now is so alien to me. I saw the last gasps of the efforts of the greatest generation. Sad. I agree, but this is the pendulum thing. What we saw in 2022-23 was the worst of it. The culture is moving back, and it's a good thing. So don't give up all hope. I think that it's going to be that generation that is currently about 25 to about 35, 40. They are the ones who are the worst, essentially. I'm sorry to be so generalist and slap an entire generation. But they're the ones that are going to cop it the worst because they were raised and indoctrinated in all this woke nonsense. They were told from the womb that this is the future. This is the way we're going. This is progress now. All the old fuddy-duddies are going to die out. And they really, a lot of them have nailed their flag to that mast. And now all of a sudden, the world is changing under their feet. And a lot of them aren't old enough, or sorry, they're old enough. They don't have enough life experience to understand what's happening around them.
They're not mature enough. There's a lack of maturity among a lot of these.
Yeah.
Sorry to interject here, but this is important. So I don't like giving her any more airtime, but Clementine Ford was put up a video mocking Charlie Kirk's wife. And it wasn't satire. It wasn't funny. It was just her just being gross, right? And a lot of people were outraged. People were sharing it. And I was like, that's what she wanted. She wanted you to be outraged. She's so irrelevant now that she needs to throw meat to the base to get conservatives riled up so it keeps her in the headlines. And what people don't realize, like, she's not an idiot. Clementine Ford's not an idiot. I disagree with her on everything. But she knows, much like Portelli, that attention is the ultimate currency. When she does something that outrageous and that disgusting, she knows it's going to get people fluffing their feathers, right? So that's how she keeps in the conversation. The point is, with these people, with your Gretas, your Abbeys, your Clementine Fords, look at them, laugh at them, and then move away. Don't get angry at them. Don't get worked up around them. Just go, loser, and walk off.
Move on.
Because it takes the sting out of it for them. They're losing power. And interestingly, just on the Clem thing, I've had a lot of people. So for those of you who don't know this, I think most of you know this by now, but she went after me like bad at the height of 2021, right? July 2021, her little feminazis and the mainstream media came after me with a level of vitriol that is reserved for like war criminals, right? It was horrendous what they did. Interestingly now, if she tried to do that today, like, I don't want anyone to do this on my behalf, so do not take this as a battle cry, but I believe if she was to come after me today, there would be a huge contingent of people be like, not Carly, right? Like, the pendulum has swung. Maybe not enough, but now it's to the point where if Clementine Ford comes after someone, that people are going to be like, this woman's unhinged. Whereas 2021, she was still held up as like a respectable feminist, you know?
Yeah, so this really relates to Daniel's comment here. The ideologues on the left are eating their own, including the new movement of the LGB, splitting from the TQUIA+. His letters, not mine. There's some letters in there that I don't even know what they're going to be. This is definitely happening, but what you've got is a split. So you've got the ones that they've eaten, the Martina Navratilovas, the J.K. Rowlings, the Germaine Greers. We've talked about all of that before. But you've also got the new generation of bitter clingers, and that's where Clementine Ford fits, where she is actually so entrenched inside the sexual revolution and the extreme end of the feminazi movement that she can't get eaten by them. She is them. And what's going to happen now is the pendulum moves back the other way, that she's going to become the bitter clinger. She's this new generation of people who they can't move from where they are because their entire identity is built around where they are. They're going to hold on to that for the rest of their lives. And, you know, the likes of Clementine Ford are going to grow old reminiscing about the early 2020s and the late 2010s, saying those were the days back when we were in the ascendancy. And unfortunately for them, you know, someone like a Clementine Ford, she's got very few options. She can't really leave, and yet she's now a part of a dying movement.
Yeah. And it is interesting, though, like, not to harp on about these guys, but your Abbeys and your Clems, right? You're kind of your big examples. There is a massive, like we talked about this last week when we were talking about feminism, there is a huge groundswell of young women who are going, where do we go? I don't want to be attached to this death cult. Where do we go? Now, obviously, they're still looking at people who are trad wives, for lack of a better description, going, I don't want to be that either. So like, there's a lot all happening, and it's all happening very quickly. I've just told you about this generation's also abandoning TikTok because they're exhausted by it. They're starting to realize that feminism isn't for them anymore. Like, and these things take time. You can't undo all this ideological brainwashing. They've been in it for their whole school system. Like, it's going to take time for them to rewire, you know? So I have hope for some of them.
That's the power of Erica Kirk, though, in my opinion. And that's why she's being attacked so viciously, is because she's actually modeling a different kind of woman, a woman who isn't a feminist and yet is empowered. She's everything that feminism promised, but she's not a feminist. And that's what makes her so dangerous, I think, and why she's getting attacked as much as she is. Yes?
Did you see this on the weekend? Bonnie Blue was assaulted by a crazy leftists, right?
No, I did not see that.
Bonnie Boo is literally the final boss of feminism. She's everything they wanted, like sexual promiscuity, making money with sex work, you know, like smash the patriarchy, all the kind of feminist tropes. Bonnie Blue is the result, much like Andrew Tate is, right? Bonnie Blue got assaulted by a progressive leftist because something about the brother, something about Bonnie Blue had done something to brother. I don't know enough about the story, but isn't it interesting? Of all the people to attack her, you wouldn't think it would be someone who literally wanted her to be created.
Yeah. Look, I can't celebrate an assault on anyone. But yeah, the revolution eating its own it's a real thing. That's a real thing.
No.
All right, CJ Westman, the media are active partners of the Labor money laundering machine. Most of the machete bin money went to communication, 11 a.m. COVID briefings and advertising, popularizing cost of living instead of inflation and recession. Yeah, the amount of money that's spent on focus groups, on advertising, I mean, hundreds of millions of dollars across Australia being spent federally and state. This is what I said earlier in this podcast. I don't know, obviously, when you joined us, CJ, but the government doesn't have to own an industry in order to control an industry, and they control the media because they spend so much money. They have all these pet consultants because they spend so much money, and therefore they can get whatever results they want because these consultancy firms know if you tell the government something they don't want to hear, you don't get the next contract. So they control with money rather than with ownership. And yes, it's back to that thing of it's not brown paper bags under the table. It's all done. Our corruption in this country is done in plain sight. It's all open right there in front of us in contracts.
It's no different with the CFMEU. It's the exact same shit.
Yeah.
I need to bring this in, sorry, quickly.
Oh, yeah.
that video that you put the clip on your own YouTube channel, boy, was I roasted in the comments. But it turns out a lot of you do it. Now, just for the record, I'm not standing in there bloody like this. It's just there. I'm not on me. God, people's imaginations are a little too vivid. Stop imagining me in the shower. Jeez.
No comment. All right. Arche Boise says the backyard Shiraz solutionist city-dwelling left will welcome in the digital ID if they believe it will quell the digitally created fascist voices living rent-free in their heads. That is a hell of a sentence, but yes, I agree.
Yes, agree. You said it.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
Basically, it's the same as the Trump versus Tylenol stuff. It's the equal opposite reaction. That's what it is.
Yeah. Yeah, I was hospitalized from a migraine in Feb. I'm 21, says Shady Rope. Yeah, they're awful. If you get genuine, like there are people who say, I get migraine or I have a migraine and they're walking around fine. And you're like, you have a headache. You know, I respect that. That's unpleasant. But a migraine is bury your face in a pillow, put another pillow over your head to block out every bit of sound and every bit of noise and hope like hell you can get to sleep. The worst ones are the ones that I ignore when I get that warning signal. And once they kick in full on, I can't sleep. And then you're just lying there for hours with a thunderous head under a pillow. And it's just, awful.
I don't get them too often. I'm probably lucky enough to get maybe 4 or 5 a year. But if you, like for me, it's the light. This eyelid starts to twitch and I know, oh shit. And if I get onto it quick enough, I can usually stop it. But if I push through anything, it's like a pin dropping will send me into a spin. That's how horrible it feels. So it's like when people say they got the flu. I've got the flu. I'm like, mate, when you have the flu, you bloody know about it. Let me tell you.
Are your joints aching? Do you feel like you're made out of do you feel like you're the Tin Man and you haven't been lubricated in 1,000 years?
Do you feel like you need to go to hospital because you genuinely feel like you're actually about to die? Well, then that's the flu, honey. It sucks.
All right. So Joe Cameron says, here is me loving Queensland. I used to live in a Queenslander and I had my own Air Force Magpie military force. If someone upset my cat, they were dealt with. That's next level. If your cat has made peace with the local magpies, that's next level. You've done well.
So what you're saying is, guys, I made the right decision to feed them. I'm doing the right thing here. Okay, good.
Trust me, you want magpies to be your friends, not your enemies. CJ Westman, this is a great idea. Please get an Oddcast PO box so we can gift books and whiskey. Wow.
This is on my list of things to talk to you about on Wednesday because this is not the first time I've had this question.
Okay, all right. Well, I have a PO box. I have two, one in Melbourne, one in Albury, so we can sort something out. Yaron Gartner says they will eventually turn to universal basic income as an incentive, and the sheep will flock and sign up to digital ID. quite possibly, if they get that far, and this is why we need to be on it now. Universal basic income is poison. People try and sell it for a whole bunch of reasons. It is absolute poison. It will completely destroy productivity. And as you know, I've talked about this at length. I'll just mention it very briefly again. If on average we produce more than we consume, we get richer. If on average we consume more than we produce, we get poorer. Things like a universal basic income is basically giving people permission to consume without producing. It is a recipe for future poverty.
Yeah.
So yeah, we need to nip that in the bud. Do you think Elon? This is Broku. Do you think Elon could rush an app to market to record protest crowd numbers? It would record just the device ID to avoid spamming or fudging numbers, and can only be recorded once per 24 hours. I think a better way to do that is, because there's always overhead shots now. There's always a helicopter or a drone or something. Using AI to do head counts, I think, is probably a better way to do that. That's less invasive of privacy. Could he? Yes. Will he? I doubt it. I don't think so. But I think we can get the same result just from On
that, I don't think we need that anymore. Like, no one believes the media these days anyway. Like, when they're like, there's an example recently down Torquay, right? So, Melissa, you'll probably know more about this than I do. I know Melissa's watching. So, Paul Barker, Libertarian candidate, who's also a councillor down in Torquay, there was some kind of, I might get the details wrong, so Melissa, feel free to correct me, but there was some kind of Indigenous ceremony thing, and the local council used the words thousands of people. Now, there's a photo of the event, and it's in the tens of people. There's like 100 at best, right?
Yeah.
And Paul Barker, not being rude, literally just said, hey, like, let's be careful of our language. It's not thousands of people. And they literally banned him. Like, he's on the he's on timeout for the councillor.
Yeah, he's been suspended for a month. So I did an interview with him the other day, which we've actually decided to pull. I'm not going to publish that interview because once you become a councillor, you get bound by all these ridiculous rules that are a part of the code of conduct, etc. And I'm debating redoing the interview with him only ever saying, I'm sorry, I can't comment on that. Because that was half of our interview anyway, was him saying, look, actually, I can't talk about that. I can't, I'm sorry, And so in the end, it was really a nothing interview. Paul's great. I've known him for years. I've got a lot of time for him, a lot of respect for him. And I believe what happened was the council claimed 2,500 people. And yeah, there were tens of people there. And Paul just said, count the heads. All right. And then it all sort of unfolded from there. Now, he was hauled before an independent tribunal. We all know what independent means, who has decided to suspend him for a month because he was saying things that could undermine public trust in the council. Right. And that was a breach of the councillor's code of conduct. I believe I've got that right. And so on that basis, he was suspended for a month. I would argue that if him pointing out the false claim risks bringing the council into disrepute, then making the false claim is the thing that is disreputable. So you don't like, it's literally shooting the messenger, literally saying to him, you're not allowed to point out the ways in which the ratepayer funded council is lying to ratepayers. It's absolutely absurd.
Yeah, these stories just drive me crazy. Can I just say that my impersonations and my accents really just pull the show together? I'm glad, Sen, that you appreciate my
tangent time is what keeps this show going.
My terrible, terrible accents and impersonations are sensational.
I will credit you. That magpie impersonation was actually good. And can I make an observation about Australian birds? The prettier the bird looks, the worse it sounds. The worse the bird behaves, the better it sounds. Magpies will rip your head off if you give them half a chance, but they are the prettiest sounding birds that we have in this country. White cockatoos look fantastic. You never want to have a flock of white cockatoos near you. It is just the most awful sound.
And they destroy your wood. Like my close friend, my best mate, Sally, she hates cockatoos. Like, she has a vendetta against them. Like, if she could go to war with the cockatoos, she would. And they troll her because of that. But yeah, Australia's got a real thing with birds, don't we?
It's weird. And then last one before we finish the show. This might be a record length for a live. Patrick the Random Roadie Van Roast says you can get Anagrain from pharmacy for migraines. Yeah, I need to go and talk to somebody about getting something better, because I do get them from time to time. But I'll figure that out. Well, this has been a fun show, Carly.
There's lots to talk about. It, what's hard with lives is like there's all these things I want to bring in, but the conversation's like.
Yeah.
So
But that's the fun. I mean, we
Wednesday,
didn't get to half the things I had on my list for today, but remember the
we
whole
have
premise.
Wednesday.
Well, that's right. But remember the whole premise of what we're doing, Carly. We are literally pointing a camera at the conversations that we already were having, right?
Yes.
We were having another one of our fun conversations, and we were like, this would be a great podcast. And so we did. And we made the agreement. There were a couple of rules. Number one, we have to have fun. If we stop having fun, there's no point. So we're going to keep doing it for as long as we're having fun. And number two, we're not going to change for our audience. We're going to do us. And either there's going to be a market for it or there isn't. And I think given there's 1,768 people watching us right now at 10:09 p.m. on a Monday night, I'd say that we're resonating with the audience.
Oh, we've got a troll in the chat. Should we touch on the troll? I love it when all of a sudden a troll joins the chat. Nah, fuck them. Can't be bothered.
Yeah,
Go
fuck
away.
them. We need to finish. We've been going for long enough. Maybe another time. Come back next week, troll. We might talk about you then.
Soz, mate. You're not important.
This has been a pleasure, but I have some breaking news. I am known as many different things to many different people for many different reasons. But one of the names that I have is the marbles guy. And that's because of the marbles videos that I did teaching people how preferential voting worked. Well, I am recording first thing tomorrow. I have it all down here ready to go. The first thing I'm recording starting at about 6:30 tomorrow morning is a video where I'm explaining how our energy market works using poker chips. The way our energy market works in Australia is completely munted and ridiculous, and you probably won't believe me when I break it down for you because it is so dumb. But I'm going to use poker chips. Different colors represent different kinds of energy, and I'm going to put it together in different scenarios and show you why. In Japan, they have cheaper electricity than us, even though 30% of their electricity comes from Australian coal and Australian gas that has been shipped to them from Australia. And yet they can burn it and put it into their electricity grid and pay less for their power than what we pay using our own coal and gas here. And it's not coal and gas's fault. It's the energy market operator and the way that works. And I'm filming a video using poker chips. So from later on this week onwards, I will be the poker chip guy. Yep.
Didn't Mike Cannon-Brookes just buy a majority sharehold of AGL?
Possibly. I don't know.
Remembering that wrong? Right? Yeah. I'm pretty sure. I don't know. Either he did it or Atlassian did it. Like they are now the major shareholders of AGL.
Yeah. Wouldn't surprise me. Anyway, more on that on Wednesday. Thank you, Koala Blues. Thanks for a great live. Thanks for being here. Thanks for being a great audience. All 1,765 of you still online.
A long one.
Much appreciated. And
please intro next podcast with Carly's back. I'll get them in. One of them came in the house today, so I'll get them in for us.
Guys, buy us a coffee. Say thank you. Help us stay caffeinated and angry because that's how we do our best work. And also head over to @TheOddcast HQ on YouTube. Make sure you've subscribed to us on YouTube. That's going to help the channel. If you do want to get Oddcast merch, Carly, what are you wearing? Hang on, let me get rid of that. What are you wearing? Wearing the Oddcast. And on the back, I think that's the Tangent Time one. No, this is all just a simulation. Yes.
Yeah.
So we've got a bunch of different designs. We've got a bunch of different designs. It is all available at goodpeoplebreakbadlaws.com. Ta-da! You'll find my books and all that stuff there as well. But that's where you'll be buy G a beer. Well, hey, G gets the Waterboy Award this week, coming in with that drink for you.
To be honest, G's actually the most important part of this podcast because without it wouldn't happen.
Yeah, that's probably fair.
We'd be tripping over wires and having things fall on our heads during the podcast.
That is absolutely true. All right, so next week we're starting with Carly's Magpie song. And yes, keep an eye out, Pro Engineer, this week for my video on how the energy market works. It is absolutely insane. People genuinely won't believe me. When I break it down, they're going to say, no, that can't be right. But it is.
Also, guys, if you do want to message us and have us talk about a particular topic that we can plan for, when you do that, you can send us a private message and we answer them all. So, I mean, we do try and keep up with the chat, as you can see, but it just gets a little bit crazy. So if there's anything like there's a topic that you want us to talk about specifically, you can let us know there and Topher and I will do some research on it and either he'll do a video or we'll discuss it on the Wednesday show.
Yep. Thanks, guys. We love you. Thanks for watching.